Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Today, you're in for a real treat. We have a lecture from none other than Dr. John McDougall, who will be discussing with us the truth about vitamin D. He will answer questions after his talk, but only on the subject of vitamin D and sunshine. Now, if you have other questions from Dr. John McDougall, he invites you to watch his show, which takes place live every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube, where you're watching this right now. And you can ask him questions in the chat there or submit questions in advance to office@drmcdougall.com. And he and Mary will be happy to answer your questions during his McDougall AMA, Ask Me Anything, Sunday nights, 5 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube, on Dr. McDougall's YouTube page. Please welcome him back to the show. It seems like forever since you've been on.
I was going to say that I should have practiced up before I joined you this morning, because it's been so long since we've been together. I haven't been challenged. I haven't had to put together anything new. It's been, I feel like there's been a big pause that we shouldn't let happen too often, AJ. But I've been keeping track of your daily encounters with different ideas and people, and you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. I really enjoy it. But
Well,
you're one of my top favorites to have on.
Well, it shows your enthusiasm, the fact that you really want to hear what these other people have to say. And, by and large, they're teaching important things. And anything that helps people understand that they need to eat a starch-based diet. And I know you talk about from the point of view of microbiome, bacteria in the bowel, et cetera, and all kinds of different points of view, but it all ought to come back to the most important issue. And that is what you eat. It's the food. There are lots of other things you can get off track on, and they're interesting and they add to the subject, but it's the food. And what you need to do, and for those of you who are new to me, I'm a board certified internist. I'm a medical doctor. I've personally taken care of over 12,000 people. I've been licensed to practice medicine for 50 years. I'm licensed in 4 states to practice medicine. So, I'm the real thing. I'm the real doctor. I take care of people, and I take care of folks just like you. And, what I want you to know is that there's a lot of peripheral things going out there. And we're going to talk about them today, like vitamin D supplements. I know you're looking for better health. I know you don't feel as well as you should. Of course, you're not as young as you used to be either. Can't change that. I can't fix that. But you're having all kinds of problems with your weight, with feeling good or feeling poorly. You're worried about all kinds of comorbid factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high blood sugar. Some of you have diabetes, and just not working out for you or for your family members. And as a life goal, I've spent 46 years trying to tell people the same simple things. And that is that the human being is a starch eater. And what we mean by that is you should survive. Your main food is starch. Like people have consumed in the past, traditional diets. For example, I like to give the example of the Native American, because they're so important, the recognition of the Native American. And the fact that I can show you regions of the Southwest where our Native Americans 10, 12,000 years ago lived on potatoes. A special variety called Four Corners potatoes. And that happens to be where the 4 corners of 4 different states meet together in the Southwest. And of the Native American, and a little bit further south in Central America and Mexico. These people, well, if you studied the Aztecs and the Mayans, these people are the people of the corn. Yeah, they fought battles, they had babies, they competed in athletic events, and most of their nutrition came from corn. You go a little bit further south, and I know many of you are interested in the Incas and the Andes and the people who lived in this area of the world 10,000, 20,000 years ago. And what do they eat? The Andes are the potato capital of the world. They lived on potatoes. And still today, potatoes are a big deal for Peru, for the people who live in Peru. People who live in Peru, they're changing, just like the rest of the world is. They're changing to the rich Western diet, lots of meat, lots of dairy, et cetera. But that's not their heritage. You go back 50 years for the people that I just mentioned, and you're talking about starch eaters. Or you go to other parts of the world, like, let's go to the Middle East, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, and now Ukraine. You go to that part of the world, and it's known as the bread basket of the world. They don't call it the bacon basket of the world or the beef basket of the world. It's the bread basket of the world. It's the starch. And I think most of us can easily relate to the Asian people from China, Vietnam, Thailand. We spent a lot of our attention over the last 50 years on this part of the world. And when you think about food, when it comes to people from this area of the world, what do you think about? What do you think about? Come on now.
Yeah.
You think about rice. We're starch eaters, and our diet has been perverted to the point where everybody's sick. I know. Like I say, I started this conversation by telling you, I know you don't feel well. I know you're not enjoying the health, the control, the freedom that you deserve. It's because of the food. I can prove it to you in a week. Certainly, I can prove it to you in 12 days. Probably the core of our business and our efforts and our reward that we would get from patients and we get ourselves is the 12-day telemedicine. In other words, we take care of you with real doctors over the internet for 12 days. And boy, oh boy, the support is amazing. And the life changes that take place are absolutely amazing. But, not everybody can afford the time or the money. People leave us, they tell us that's the best money they ever spent. Best vacation they ever had was spend 12 days with us because they really, for a change, felt free. And they become free of their medications. So we get nearly 90% of people to reduce or stop their medications in 12 days. Stuff that's doing you more harm than good, cost you buckets of money, and wasting your time. Just think all the pills you have to take. So that's the kind of success that we have. And the 12-day program is the epitome of what I do. But not everybody has the time, maybe the interest, hopefully not. Hopefully you're really interested in yourself. The time or the money to spend 12 days with us over the internet. I know, I wish I could give it to you for free, but this is our business. But we have always, if you've followed us for decades, you've known that we've offered the McDougall program for free on the website. It's still offered free. But, in this day and age, it's so simple and so easy. And AJ is a great example of this, to bring information to people who are interested conveniently and at no cost at all. And so Mary, Heather, and we've decided to extend every Sunday night at 5:00 at Pacific time for a live interaction with you. So if you have questions about your health, we're get whatever, as long as it's legal for me to answer it, I'll tell you about how you get off your blood pressure pills and stop your diabetic pills and what you ought to do instead of suffering from rheumatoid arthritis and taking all these expensive drugs that are $10,000 to $70,000 a year just for the drug for these autoimmune diseases. I'll tell you, free. And, if you've already discovered the truth about human nutrition, that we're starchivores, we say it again, starchivores, starchitarians, starch eaters. You've already discovered this and you've enjoyed excellent health, and people walk up to you and say, "What did you do? You look so young, you look so healthy." And you start to tell them and they, blank face, they don't want to hear it. Well, don't give up on them. It takes time for people to hear this and respond and to learn and to change. So if they really matter to you, like your spouse or your best friends or people in your church, give them another chance. Tell them again and again and again. Then say, "Hey, oh, by the way, what are you doing Sunday nights at 5:00?" Dr. John and Mary and Heather are going to be on at 5:00 every Pacific time, 5:00 Pacific time every Sunday night. And you just go to the McDougall channel and tune in and, hey, ask me your questions. That's what we're going to try and reserve this 5:00 time for. We may have some guests like Chef AJ does, but good grief, Chef AJ's on 1,000 shows. I've got other things to do besides that, but I do have enough time that I'd like to make sure that anybody can do the program and can get the kind of medical care that they deserve. That may involve your current medical doctor, because there's some restrictions as far as what I can say to you as a non-doctor, and you're a non-patient. Once you become a patient, the only way you become a patient is you join our 12-day live-in program. Oh, excuse me, no longer live-in, our 12-day internet-based program. That's the only way you've ever become a patient for the last 46 years, is you either had to take the program at St. Helena Hospital, which I ran for 16 years, or you had to take it at the resort in Santa Rosa, California, which I ran for 18 years. Or you have to join it for the 12-day program, and then officially, professionally, legally, I'm your doctor. So is Dr. Lim and the other doctors we have involved. So anyway, I hope that gives you enough opportunities. You have no excuse for continuing the way you are if you're not happy. There are simple answers, and we're there for you when we got the patients. And I've been dealing with various subjects, thanks to Chef AJ. I've been able to talk to you about McDougall's medicine. And any of you have particular problems, I encourage you to go to the internet and either look up Chef AJ and McDougall, or go to the McDougall channel and look up McDougall and whatever topic you're interested in. Heart disease. I'll give you the data on how heart surgery does not save lives and what to do to get out of trouble, how you reverse this disease. Free. It's on the internet, YouTube. Or you can figure out about diabetes. You can learn that type 2 diabetes is 100% curable. And how to save a type 1 diabetic, you'll learn that. Or high blood pressure, what 20% of the population conservatively has high blood pressure. Probably 40% has high blood pressure. You can fix this easily. You can stop the pills. I'll show you how. Same thing with these autoimmune diseases like multiple sclerosis and rheumatoid arthritis. Free. Thanks to Chef AJ, free. We put up all of these different discussions. And what I've been trying to do over the last few sessions we spent together is I've been trying to address some subjects that have come up that there seems to be a bit of controversy over in terms of what I recommend and other people recommend. And I'd like to at least be able to give you my point of view. And the thing I do, in addition to talking to you about my point of view, making the truth simple and easy to understand, because the truth is simple and easy to understand. I give you the scientific references. And you'll notice in each and every card in the deck, they call them, the slide that I show, there are references to the scientific literature down in the, well, let's see, it'd be the right-hand corner one. And you can get access to the whole study. The reason that I say the things that I say, you'll see that it's not controversial. That's what you'll learn. But you've got to take it from there. I can only tease you a little bit. I can only encourage you a little bit to learn these things, and it's kind of up to you to take it the next step for you and the ones you love, your family. But it's there. It's available. It really works. Anyway, what I want to talk to you about today, thank you, Chef AJ, is I want to talk to you about vitamin D, because that happens to be the most popular supplement these days. Last time we were together, I talked to you about some other supplements, which were popular throughout time. And again, if you've been alive long enough, you've realized and you remember the time when antioxidants, beta carotene was so popular. Remember that? Doctors used to prescribe beta carotene to basically every heart patient. So, there's always a little truth to some of the messages that are offered, but you want to have the whole truth. And today, the official recommendation from doctors, medical organizations, dietetic organizations is don't take beta carotene. This supplement will kill you. It increases your risk of cancer and heart disease and death by causing nutritional imbalances. So we talked about that last time we were together. I talked about various vitamins, including vitamin B12. But we didn't have a chance to get to vitamin D. And I'd like to spend, maybe, let's see, half an hour and talk to you about that. This is a small portion of a series of lectures that I'll be giving through our program. So you want to sign up for our newsletter and sign up to get information. I'm going to do a whole series of lectures. Well, in fact, I'm going to do 2 series. Let me just tell you a little bit about the future. One series is going to be about nutrition. And there'll be titles of half-day seminars that are live, question and answer time for you. The first session is going to be where do you get your protein? I mean, everybody asks you, as soon as you tell them what you do, where do you get your protein? And throughout that lecture and the next few lectures, we'll talk about where you get your calcium. And then Chef AJ and some of you folks have been encouraging me to talk about omega-3 fats. You know, some of your guests I've heard promote the taking of omega-3 flaxseed, omega-3, not fish oil, but flaxseed, supplements to prevent various ailments such as Alzheimer's disease. That's not true. You'll get hurt if you believe in that message. And so the second in the series that I'm going to teach is going to be about fats and oils and fish, lots about fish. Why? Because I'm a fish lover. I used to be a fish killer, but I'm a fish lover these days. And then we're going to be talking about starches. That's the third in the series. And particularly, we're going to focus on rice and potatoes. Talk a bit about diabetes and weight loss in this particular section too. And then the fourth is going to be a discussion again about supplements, vitamins, minerals, where you get them. They're vital vitamins, and how to safely get your vitamins, including an extended version of this particular presentation I'm going to give you right now. But that's in a series coming up in November, December. If you're interested, you want to join us, then check to the website. And that's the first series. And, you know, fate being willing, I'll be around long enough to do a second series, which will be on medical care. And each time we do a seminar, it'll be a half a day, 2 one-hour lectures and 2 sessions on question and answers. It'll be half a day. It'll be limited audience. You get all your questions answered. And as I mentioned, there'll be live events. And you also, one of the things I'm doing, Chef AJ, which I think will be helpful to people, and I've never done this before. You know, for the last 40 years, I've been asked to give my slides over. You know, I'll do a presentation, the truth about health, et cetera, and they want to have my slides. Excuse me. I worked really hard putting these together and making sure that they were educational. And what you'll find on the slide presentation I give you today is more information than I'm able to verbally convey to you. And you'll find the scientific references to support that particular card in the deck or slide. But I finally decided that part of the education process is to give these out. And so people will get a color picture book at the end of each of the sessions in the 4-part series that they'll be able to share and refer to and so on. Now, you got to replay the program. You got to listen to the ads on YouTube. And then you can get the same kind of information. It's available. It's free. Again, free is kind of the name of the game. We'll continue to give whatever we can. Well, let's get on to this presentation. AJ, did I bring up any questions or any things that we should be talking about?
Oh, just people are saying potatoes are their life. You know, people just love
I know. I mean, I'm sure you're sitting back there frustrated. Can you imagine how frustrated I was when I came about all this information almost 50 years ago? And all my colleagues were teaching the opposite. They said diet has nothing to do with disease. That used to be the mantra back then. You were a quack if you even thought that diet had anything to do with disease beyond restricting calories and a well-balanced diet. That's all you were taught. And if you questioned any of the specialties, if you question early detection or any drug therapies or any surgeries like mastectomies for women who get breast cancer, if you questioned that, you could lose your license. You could lose your hospital privileges. You know, that's the era that I came from. But it's not that way anymore because of, thank goodness, the freedom of information that we have with the internet. The truth is out. Anyways, you must be frustrated these days when you see so many ill people. You know, you go to a shopping mall go to a restaurant. What do you see? Or even just watch the TV and look at the current commercials. They're on for various products from banks to foods. What do they use as actors and actresses? Overweight, sometimes sickly looking people, so that you can identify with them, because that's the norm. I know you're frustrated, but it's worth the trouble. You just like for myself and for Chef AJ, is if you can help one person and they somehow let you know that you made a difference. And I know AJ gets hundreds of letters every day, probably, of people who are so grateful for the information that she brought to her. I mean, the same's going to happen to you. When you save your spouse or your children or your parents, they're going to credit you for enlightening them. So don't give up. It's worth it. If you can take the pain, don't give up. It's worth it. All right, so this is part 2. Part 1, we talked about probably 2 months ago, when we talked about beta carotene and vitamin C and folic acid. We talked a lot about folic acid and B12. Boy, did I give you the talk on B12. And by the way, you'll find a written form of this information on the website free. So you just have to put in the questions.
Are you frozen, Dr. McDougall?
I feel like I'm okay here.
Yeah,
okay?
Now you're okay. You were frozen for just a second.
Yeah. Well, at certain times of the day, the internet just gets so clogged up. And unfortunately, the morning people are making contacts with all their business arrangements and so on. So morning and sometimes the early evening, we get into this trouble. Well, just let me know if we're having problems with the internet. Anyway, the discussion today is a completion of the vitamin mineral discussion. And I want to focus this on vitamin D. And I'm sharing this with you, and hopefully that's all you and your friends and relatives will need. But for you to really understand and really listen, shouldn't the information come from your personal physician? I run into this all the time. But my doctor says otherwise. Your doctor is such a personal professional in your life that you're going to listen to him or her, and you should, unless they're uninformed. And they still fail to teach human nutrition in medical schools. They teach you a few biochemical formulas. But as far as diet therapy, as far as changing your diet and getting you immediately well or long-term well, it's not taught. But that's changing. Short of your doctor being able to give you the kind of information that I'm going to give you today, you can always help try and convert some of your doctors. Show them this presentation. Turn them onto our website. Have them join us at 5 o'clock on Sunday nights, and I'll answer their questions. Sunshine, sunny days chasing those clouds away. Remember that? Sesame Street theme song. Sun has been God. And probably most of the civilizations that have ever existed, because the sun is so important. And still today, the sun plays a role in your everyday health. It relieves depression. You've heard of seasonal affective disorder. It sets your circadian rhythm. It deals with jet lag. It makes you a better person. You need sun. It's one of the 3 components that I encourage you to make the foundation of your health program. You need sun, not too much. And it's so easy to damage the skin. I'm an excellent example. I having lived in Hawaii for 15 years. I should have been living up in Ireland, or certainly Michigan or New York, but instead I lived in Hawaii, and I learned how damaging the sun can be. But many of you live with a deficiency of sunlight. You You have dark skin, live in polluted environments, work all day long, wear clothes because you're afraid of sunshine. There's this anti-sun campaign out there that is propagated by dermatologists who happen to make their living treating sun damage. And of course, they want to share with you how to keep themselves out of business. No, they don't. But anyway, you've heard this the message too many times: the sun is damaging. There's another side of the coin, and that is you need sunshine. You develop a very serious problem called rickets, which occurred first in England when people moved to cities and they had sunlight blocked. And rickets is a condition of children. They develop bone abnormalities, very emaciated skeletons. It's a real serious problem. It's corrected, by the way, by not just giving sunshine to people who have rickets, but by also giving them vitamin D pills and shots. Well, because you could correct this serious condition of rickets in the adult form called osteomalacia by giving vitamin D pills and shots, doesn't mean that vitamin D pills and shots should be taken by healthy people. The alternative is sunshine. It does the same thing for free without side effects. Vitamin D is not a vitamin. Vitamins are components, small components of our nutrition that we have to get from the outside. They're vital for life, and we can't make them ourselves. So that's what vitamins are. There are 13 known vitamins. 11 are made by plants. One is B12, which I talked about in the previous lecture. And the other is something that's not a vitamin. It's a hormone. It's called vitamin D. But that's only if you live under an unnatural circumstance, such as without sunlight, because the skin makes vitamin D with the energy from the sun. Sunlight converts cholesterol. Yeah, you've learned about cholesterol. Where does the cholesterol come from? Well, we as animals make cholesterol. What do we make it from? Well, from plant sterols. So you eat plants. There are plant sterols, which is chemically similar to the structure of cholesterol. And then because we're animals, we have the ability to convert plant sterols into cholesterol, all the cholesterol that we need. And some of that cholesterol goes to form sex hormones, progesterones, testosterones, estrogens. So very important that you don't have a too low of cholesterol. In other words, making it too low by taking a supplement or taking a medicine like statins. You don't want to do that unless it's medically necessary. In other words, you're at big risk of having a heart attack or a stroke. In other words, a certain level of cholesterol is important. And some of that cholesterol goes to the skin. And the sunshine, the energy of sunlight converts cholesterol into vitamin D. And then it goes through a couple other processes in the liver and the kidneys to convert it to the more active form of vitamin D. It's a hormone. It's made by the human body. It only becomes a vitamin when you do something strange, like not get sunshine. The other two components to good health are food and moderate exercise. Those are the only three things that you really have to pay attention to. All right, we believe that vitamin D is a vitamin because we ignore the fact that it's really a hormone. Really, vitamin D is due to sunlight deficiency. It's similar to telling you that that heart disease and artery disease and strokes and atherosclerosis are due to statin deficiency. What your doctor should be telling you, because you could correct the blood cholesterol and do a little bit, a tiny, tiny bit, as far as making the arteries healthier by taking statin drugs. But who would believe, or who should believe, that the reason your arteries are failing you is because of lack of statins? Mevacor, Zocor. That's what the medical profession has come to teach us. There's some doctors who say we should add statins to the drinking water, just like we add fluoride to the drinking water. Well, it'd be similar in the case of vitamin D to tell you that the problem is not taking enough supplements, enough pills, enough shots. No, the problem is sunshine. You're not getting enough. So the medical profession has latched on to the idea that vitamin D is please excuse me if I fail to call it hormone D. I'll just call it vitamin D for the rest of the presentation. There has been an association made between vitamin D and almost any ailment you can think of. Fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, menopausal symptoms, heart disease, various kinds of cancer. And the response that you get from the medical business is you're instructed to get your vitamin D levels tested and then to fix the problem by taking vitamin D supplements. Well, let me explain to you where this misinformation comes from. Let's start with the globe on the left. What we find is that diseases like, for example, heart disease or multiple sclerosis, these problems are rare to non-existent in equatorial zones of the world. As you move further from the equator, north and south, they become common. What else happens as you move away from the equator? Second globe, the intensity of sunlight becomes less. And when you check the vitamin D levels in people's blood, as they move away from the equator, they become lower. And so that's where the connection has been made, but it's not a cause and effect situation. It's just a confounding thing that happens. In other words, something that happens at the same time that's unrelated. The causal factor is that when you move away from the equator, you change what you eat. People who live in the equatorial zones, they live on starch-based diets or have traditionally. And because of the change in growing seasons and the availability of crops, as people move to higher latitudes, they've had to resort to other sources of food, i.e., animal sources of food. It's the food that causes these problems. Breast cancer, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, multiple sclerosis, et cetera. You'll find if you look, you don't have to look too far, you'll find almost every problem is blamed upon not getting enough vitamin D. And if the truth be told, they would tell you, it's really a problem not getting enough sunshine. But if the truth really be told, you need to fix the food because the food is the cause. The data is consistent. It's clear. A well-read person would come to no other conclusion. Well, there have been multiple studies done to look at whether or not vitamin D supplementation, in other words, believing that, say, for example, heart disease or cancer are caused by lack of vitamin D. And so they run randomized control trials where they take one group and they give them the vitamin D. They're the intervention group. And then they take another group and they don't give them vitamin D. They're the control group and they see what happens. And each and every case, it's shown that giving supplements of vitamin D, pills and shots will not prevent these diseases or treat these diseases. It's, again, there's no dissenting information out there. What I just told you in relationship to planet Earth, to moving away from the equator, to diet and sunshine is proved by the scientific method. And you're going to look up this research, right? This research dealing with use of vitamin D supplements from 300 to 300,000 international units. No benefit. So how much sunshine do you need? Well, not much, particularly if you're a very light-skinned person like myself. Then you can only, I'm sure you can guess why my skin is light. Because my ancestors left the equator a long time ago. And they moved north and south. And to survive in these type of lower sunlight environments, my skin had to lighten up. Whereas people who remained at the equator, because the intensity of sunlight is so great, they needed added pigmentation to prevent damage from sunshine. So as you move north and south, what happens is your skin lightens up to fit the environment. So a light person, like myself, needs very, very little sunshine. And it takes about 20 minutes of exposure to get all the vitamin D that you're going to need. You don't need to burn yourself. In fact, one of the best ways to gauge whether or not you're getting adequate sunshine exposure is to just note that your skin is a little inflamed. In my case, it would be a little red, a little pinkish. The first indication that you are getting sunburned is all the sunshine that you should and need to get to make all the vitamin D you're going to make that day. If you want to go on to the point of getting blisters from overdoses of sunshine, you're not going to make any more vitamin D. It's all made in the first 20 minutes. Now, if you're darker skinned, like for example, people in the country of India or Pakistan, or some of the Asian countries, you have a little bit darker skin, you need about 3 times as much sunshine as I need. And if you're black, again, the darker the pigment, you may require as much as 10 times as much sunshine as I would. To put this into some real numbers, as I started to explain to you, when the skin first starts to turn red is when you make most of the vitamin D. You make 10,000 international units, it's estimated. An equivalent of 10,000 international units. You need, as we'll get into, you need about 1,000 international units. 90% of the vitamin D that's in your body is made by sunshine. The rest is made by some of the vitamin D that's in food. Like, for example, they put vitamin D in milk. They put vitamin D in almost every liquid that you can buy these days. Only a tiny amount of vitamin D comes from the food supply. And then we're going to talk about people who want to really exaggerate the vitamin D, and they take pills and shots. All right. So how about a light-skinned person like me? If you look at the requirements of somebody light-skinned like myself, this is the way to think about it, is at the latitude of Boston, I need 5 minutes at noon of sunshine 3 times a week, exposed to my face and the back of my hands in spring, summer, and fall. 5 minutes at noon at the latitude of Boston. 3 times a week. That's all. Anyway, by the way, sunshine never causes vitamin D toxicity. You never end up making too much vitamin D to do any harm to your body. So you don't have to worry about that at all. You end up doing the harm only by taking supplements. I run into people all the time who tell me, look, you don't understand, Dr. McDougall. I live in Portland or Seattle or the state of Maine, and we got no sunshine here. Excuse me, you got sunshine there. Sunshine, ultraviolet exposure is intense all over the planet. In fact, it's so adequate, ultraviolet light exposure, that you can grow rainforests, like the Great Bear Rainforest, which extends from the lower border of Alaska all the way down to Vancouver, grows under an intensity of sunshine that many of you consider to be inadequate. You can grow a whole rainforest. Having lived in the Northwest, I've heard this many times, we just have so many clouds. Well, we used to. Thanks to global warming, we have an environment similar to Los Angeles. Used to be maybe 10, 15 years ago. So up here in the Northwest, we get plenty of sunshine, and you you drive around in any of the communities in Seattle or Vancouver or Portland, and you'll see solar panels on houses and commercial buildings. Why do you think they put them up there if there's not enough sunshine? Loads of sunshine. One of the things that you need to understand about vitamin D, and we're talking about vitamin D not only from pills and shots, but also the vitamin D you make, is it's stored in your body fat. It's a fat-soluble vitamin. That's why they put it what they started putting it first in milk is because whole milk is half fat. So it served as an excellent vehicle for carrying this fat-soluble vitamin, which is vitamin D. So vitamin D is stored in your body fat. Now, I want you to remember this because we're going to talk about this again in a minute. And it is slowly released from the body fat throughout the year. Now, whether or not you're going to be vitamin D sufficient depends upon how you spent your summer vacation and where. If you spend your two weeks of summer vacation in a sunny environment, getting plenty of exposure, that's going to carry you through the entire year. Now, how do we know this? Well, we take a look at people who move from sunny environments to places like the northern Alaska communities, and we watch what happens to the vitamin D levels in their body, assuming that they're not going on vacation or taking any pills or potions. And we see how the vitamin D comes out of the fat. Body fat. Or we take a look at people who go on these nuclear submarines and they're under the ice caps for like 14 months. And they look at the vitamin D content in their body and they find out that it lasts them through the entire excursion by being slowly released. Let's talk a little bit about testing vitamin D because this is part of the commercial aspect. This is why vitamin D subject is so popular because it makes money. Your doctor makes money because you come in to see the doctor and then you got to come in for follow-up visits and get refills for your pills. And then you got to recheck your vitamin D level. Oh boy, you do a lot of good for the doctors out there. And then just think of the people who make the supplements, huh? No, they make a bit of money too. And how about the laboratories? They don't do these for free. So let's talk about a little bit about vitamin D testing. It's done with a blood test. And this blood test measures 25-hydroxy vitamin D, which is the most active form of vitamin D. And the values are, well, if it's less than 10 nanograms per milliliter, you're definitely deficient. Well, 20, there's some organizations that say 20 is enough. 20 is enough. Certainly 30 to 80 is agreed, is plenty as far as the blood level of vitamin D goes. And you end up getting above that. You end up in toxic ranges. So that's the kind of report you'll get back from your laboratory and through your physician is a set of numbers that looks like this. Medicare does not pay for vitamin D testing. Stopped paying for it in March of 2022. Why? Because it's so unreliable. It's so unhelpful that the U.S. government is not going to pay for you to get the test done. Some of your insurance companies might, or it's going to come out of your pocket. But that gives you some indication of how useless and potentially harmful getting this test done is. Medicare won't pay for it. In an interesting study done in people who live in Hawaii, and I spent 15 years in Hawaii, so I know this is true. Get a lot of sun exposure, spend lots of time on the beach. What they looked at were people that spent an average of 29 hours a week on the beach exposed to sunshine. These were largely surfers. And what they found in this group is they found that 51% of the group failed to show sufficient vitamin D levels. They failed the test. 29 hours of sunshine exposure on the beach in Hawaii. And we tested, I can't remember what my vitamin D levels were, but I remember Mary's vitamin D levels. This is at a time when we took a group to Costa Rica. We took a Hawaiian vacation. We had a pool outside in our backyard in California. Spent almost every day exposed at the poolside. And Mary flunked her vitamin D test when she got it done. And I know it ruins a lot of your days and it makes you desperate. And you think, well, I finally found this, the cause of my problem is I got a low vitamin D level. And I know what the solution is. I just have to take pills or shots and everything's going to be okay. It's the food. It's the food. I'll show you ways that it's the food. All right. Some of our patients, even though they get enough sunshine, They come in and they flunk their vitamin D tests, and they're all depressed. They've gotten a level of, say, less than 20 nanograms. And, they're tempted to take vitamin D supplements, but you're not proved to be vitamin D deficient until you've corrected comorbid factors. Comorbid factors are due to what you eat, like high blood pressure, obesity, heart disease, kidney disease, and so on. These diseases are due to damage caused by the wrong food. When you damage the system, the response of the system of our bodies is inflammation. That's how we heal. So if you're injuring your arteries, 4, 5, 6 times a day with your fork and spoon, by shoveling cholesterol and fat in the artery walls, the response is an inflammatory response. And part of that response involves releasing substances into the bloodstream that lower vitamin D levels. You're going to look this up, right? The reference is down in the right-hand corner. Vitamin D levels, so chronic inflammation, which is due to what we eat, lowers artificially vitamin D levels. So you may be flunking the test because of your overall general health, which is poor. So until you correct these comorbid factors, which, by the way, correct quite quickly, in 4 days, people with inflammatory arthritis start to feel relief of pain. You can show reversal of artery disease in like a month or two on our crude techniques. Blood pressures come down in less than 7 days. So it begins quickly. Weight loss may take a while longer, and until you lose the excess body fat, which at a rate of 10, 12, 16 pounds a month may take you a year or two, you can't be free of chronic inflammation. You've got to get rid of that obesity. It's the food. You got to fix the food. And it's not just a matter of losing weight by starving yourself or making yourself sick with these low-carb diets. It's a matter of stopping the inflammation by stopping the injury to the body, by stopping the uncontrolled fork and spoon, which can't keep out of the cholesterol and fat. So chronic inflammation causes artificially low vitamin D levels. Vitamin D is fat soluble. Remember I told you that just a couple of slides ago? Vitamin D is fat soluble. So what do you think happens when you're overweight, when you have a lot of body fat? You suck the vitamin D out of your blood. So people who are overweight, who have a lot of body fat, run lower vitamin D levels when you get the test taken. Medicare won't pay for the test because it's so unreliable, and the options for helping people are few to non-existent. In fact, as we're going to talk about in a minute, it may do you more harm than good. All right, how about vitamin D in the bones? That's really where most of the focus has been paid. There have been discussions about multiple sclerosis and fibromyalgia and menopausal symptoms and heart disease and so on. But most of the focus on vitamin D has to do with the subject of bones. Well, vitamin D does not prevent falls and fractures, which is why you want to keep your bones strong, so you don't fall and fracture your bones, right? And many studies done. You're going to look through the research and you're going to see where this information lies as far as the spectrum goes of positive studies versus the studies that I'm going to show you, which are good, extensive review studies out of the best medical journals. And if you happen to be a salesperson for vitamin D, it happens to be in part of your business, I'm sure you're going to focus on any of the minor research that shows benefits of vitamin D on bone health. But that's not true. The findings: there is little justification to use vitamin D supplements to maintain or improve musculoskeletal health. This came out of the Lancet in 2018. And also they showed no benefits to cancer and heart disease. Vitamin D supplements, a systemic review and a meta-analysis, 33 randomized trials. not associated with significant difference in risk of hip fractures. Doesn't work. And how about this one? You remember this one hit newspaper headlines in every newspaper that I read. This was front page headlines. It was in July of 2022 from the New England Journal of Medicine. 26,000 participants taking vitamin D. A big dose, 2,000 international units a day, followed up for 5.3 years. No benefit to the bones or to any other part of the body. All right, it's just a matter of failing to show benefits. It's causing harm from taking these supplements. And this I want you to focus on, because I remember from my last discussion, or some discussions I've had on Chef AJ's show, that some of the comments were, well, it can't be true that vitamin D supplements are harmful and increase the risk of falls and fractures. It can't be true. So I want you to look up the research papers I'm going to show you. You decide. If you sell supplements, you probably won't believe it. JAMA Internal Medicine 2016 first addressed this issue in an article titled Vitamin D Supplementation, Increased Risk of Falling, a Cautionary Tale of Vitamin D Supplements Retold. They talk about two studies that were done, and they were studies using very large doses of vitamin D. This was a study of 2,300 community-dwelling women age 70 or older who had high risk of fractures. So if you're going to show benefits, you show benefits in these women. But the problem is in all settings, particularly as people get older, they fail to take their supplements on a regular basis. And so what they decided to do was to give a very large dose of vitamin D, as a pill to these older women, so that they maintain, remember it's fat soluble, so they'd maintain high vitamin D levels throughout the year. And they did. They ran levels initially of 120 nanograms. After the shots, even after a year, they were like at 90 nanograms. Remember, above 30 is normal or sufficient. And what they found was that within the first 3 months, there were 31% more falls and 53% more fractures. And over the entire study period, they found 15% more falls and 26% more fractures. Okay, that was a large dose of vitamin D. And very few community studies are going to involve this, except when you look at a selected group of women, older, high risk of fractures, and you make sure that they have sufficient D levels by giving them a large dose. So anyway, that was the Australian study. And they did a British study, and they used vitamin D2, vitamin D3, and vitamin D2. Some people say vitamin D2 is less effective, but then again, there's good evidence that vitamin D2 is as effective as vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 comes from animals. Lanolin is one of the primary sources. Lanolin is from sheep. So those of you who are concerned about animal welfare, you must realize your vitamin D3 supplements, most of them come from sheep. There are some special vitamin D3 vegan preparations out there in the market, but whatever. That's not what most of them are. Anyway, vitamin D2 comes from radiating plants, particularly mushrooms with sunshine spectrum of radiation. That's how you get vitamin D2 from plants. So it's a vegan form. All right, anyway, they used vitamin D2 in this particular experiment, and they gave them 300,000 international units, and they had a 59% increase in risk of falls and fractures. Another research, high-dose vitamin D causes more falls. And this is monthly, not just one single high dose, a monthly high-dose vitamin D treatment. Randomized trial, 12 months of treatment. they either gave them a high dose of 60,000 international units or a lower dose of 24,000 international units. And the difference in fractures was the high dose had 53% more fractures. Another research paper that is a little bit positive for taking vitamin D in low doses. It showed a U-shaped curve of benefit. In other words, if you didn't take any vitamin D at all, in other words, you took a placebo, you had a little higher risk of falls. And you compare that with people who took a little bit of vitamin D, not much. I mean, good grief, you make 90% of your vitamin D from sunshine, and maybe another 100 or 200 international units comes from the food. You know, you're already up over 1,000 international units just from sunshine and food. And, you know, they showed taking 400 international units in this particular study may show a benefit, but if you took more, if you took 4,000 units or 5,000 units, you had an increased risk of falls. In this particular research paper, it was an interventional study using various doses of vitamin D. And they found that fall-related fractures was greatest in those who took more than 1,000 international units a day. Like, you know, you got to remember this number, 1,000 a day, international units. And that over 1,000, you had an increased risk of falls and fractures. Another research paper where they looked at 4 different doses of vitamin D. And what they found was supplementation of greater than 1,000 units did not prevent falls compared to, say, 200 international units, which again, you know, that is a recommended dose of vitamin D for those who are going to take supplements. 200 units, 400 units, 600 units, those are typical recommendations. But people get encouraged, enthused about taking vitamin D. And so if a little is good, a lot has to be better, right? They had safety concerns about vitamin D3 doses over 1,000 international units a day. All right. Here's a review of 62 randomized trials involving 35,000 people. The conclusion was, with a high dose being associated with higher risk of falls and fractures. If you're going to take vitamin D supplements, you're going to increase your risk of falls and fractures. That's what the evidence shows. Unless you have some restraint and you take vitamin D supplements at a very, very low dose, or not at all. So going back to the first studies, the British study and the Australian study that I showed you, where they used high doses of vitamin D, they're, you know, by pills, 500,000 units, or the 300 units of vitamin D2. They tried to explain why in the world that taking these large doses of vitamin D would increase the risk of falls and fractures. And their conclusion was, is if you overdose the body with vitamin D, the receptors on the nerves and the muscles, and there are receptors for vitamin D in every part of the body, become so intense they create nutritional imbalances, so your nerves and muscles don't work as well as they should, so you fall. I think that's probably it. You just overwhelm the system. You overwhelm your vitamin D receptors with this large amount of vitamin D, and you increase your risk of falls and fractures. The other possibility is this, is that 4,000 international units a day, or 10,000 international units a day compared to 400 units a day, resulted in bone loss with these high doses of vitamin D. So maybe the bones become weaker, more fragile. When you read this paper, you'll decide whether it's true or not, or you should include this in the information that tells you to be cautious. The thing about vitamin D, and I have to carry on with the rest of the final part of this conversation, I have to understand, I have to have you understand this. You know, some of the real negative effects as to what happens to you when you buy into taking supplements of vitamin D are accumulative. Okay, because vitamin D has a half-life of about 15 days. In other words, you take a dose, and 15 days later, half of the dose is still in your body. And 15 days later, half of that dose is still in your body. It has a half-life of 15 days. Well, if you're taking it every day, what you're doing is you are adding to that pool of vitamin D in your body, and you're accumulating vitamin D throughout your body by the fact that it persists in your body and it's stored in your fat. So you can easily develop toxic levels by taking too much or taking any vitamin D, except for the minimal doses. Here's some of the adverse effects of vitamin D that occur when you take more than 2,000 international units. Kidney problems, central nervous system problems, soft tissue problems, skeletal muscle problems, gastrointestinal problems, metabolic problems. And if you want to read more about these have been discussed for, well, since I first started in medicine, the potential problems of taking vitamin D. You can read about that in greater detail, but let's get back to the bones and what happens here. 50,000 units is a week. I want you to notice this is a week, is commonly prescribed. You'll go to the internet, you'll look up vitamin D supplements, and you'll see on the package label that some of the supplements suggest 50,000 units a week. We can see how rapidly that would accumulate in your body, especially if somebody read the week as a day and took 50,000 units a day. They become toxic very quickly. Establishing a vitamin D level comparable to the Wessex study and the Australian study, where you had more falls and fractures. But you'd read the label carefully. You see this says 50,000 units a week is what they recommend, whereas 50,000 units a day will definitely lead to toxicity. People taking between 40 and 100,000 units suffer from problems of toxicity because, again, of this bioaccumulation that occurs because this is a fat-soluble vitamin. You don't get rid of the full dose between doses. You keep accumulating it. You'll find, again, supplements on the internet. I just pulled these off, where they're recommending 10,000 international units a day. Not just a week, but a day. And you can see how rapidly you'd accumulate vitamin D into your body by taking this 10,000 units a day. Take them one a day, 10,000 units. Most commonly, what I find is the supplements sold to people are 5,000 units a day. Okay, but there are preparations that you can get that you can get 1,000 units in the capsules, or 2,000 units, but 5,000 is the most common dosage that you buy over the internet. And again, how rapidly you can accumulate toxic levels. All right, at best, these vitamin D supplements are useless and a waste of money. And at worst, they're harmful. But sunshine never is, as long as you don't burn your skin. As far as getting vitamin D from sunshine, you cannot create toxicity of vitamin D with sunshine. And you add a little bit of sunshine, adequate, not too much, not too little, to some reasonable exercise. Again, moderate exercise, safe exercise, and the best diet that you can possibly put together, which is a starch-based diet with the addition of fruits and vegetables. Then you've got the secret to good health and to strong bones. Sunshine, it's essential. Careful. You want to be careful. You want to do moderate exercise. You don't want to end up hurt or hit by a car or falling off your bicycle in a rut on the street and end up in the hospital. So find something that you enjoy that's safe. And if you're going to do it for good health, it's going to be safe. If you're going to do it just for fun, like run a marathon or windsurf in shark-infested oceans, then that's another reason to exercise. But for good health, it'd be something like walking or bicycling, maybe bicycling on a stationary bike at home. And the right kind of diet, a starch-based diet with the fruits and vegetables, which is an alkaline diet. And as I've talked to you in the past, the way you damage the bones is by eating an acid-filled diet. Animal foods, dairy products, fish, beef, poultry. They're very acidic. And as a result, they cause the bones to dissolve, releasing alkaline material to neutralize the acid. And that's how you get osteoporosis. All right. Well, I think that's probably enough on vitamin D to at least get some people thinking about it and maybe looking up some of the science and trying to give me another point of view, which I'd really like to hear about, is what I missed, what I overstated. And go ahead. I'd be happy to hear any comments that you have. Or I'd also be happy to hear that you don't take this nonsense. And instead, you're a firm believer in the fact that the body's supposed to be healthy. It's always trying to heal. And what you need to do is give it the things that it needs to heal, to stay healthy, which are clean air, clean water, clean food, careful exercise, and careful sunshine. All right, Chef AJ, did I scare them away or do we have any questions?
Oh, no, we do have some questions, and a lot of people sent them in not knowing it only had to be on vitamin D, but the ones that I see posted in the chat about vitamin D, here's one from Tony. Hi, Dr. McDougall. What are your thoughts on vitamin K2 with high vitamin D3? Some say that's how to prevent side effects from high vitamin D3.
I've not heard that. I've heard of vitamin K2, which is from vegetables, green and yellow vegetables. The vitamin D K2 supplementation can lead to stronger bones. I've really not looked into it enough to give you an opinion.
Thank you. And Josh says, what about the vitamin D2 in plant milks? Or is that too much?
I'm sorry, the vitamin D in what?
The vitamin D that's present in non-dairy plant milks.
Well, they just add about 100 international units per serving. So it unless you drink a lot of it, it shouldn't be a problem. Remember, in the studies I showed you, they recommended fewer than 1,000 international units to be consumed as extra vitamin D. So if you take a glass full of milk, regular milk or soy milk, it should be 100 international units per serving. You'd have to drink 10 glasses of milk a day to get into toxic levels. And maybe some people do. It should bring up some concern. But what I'm really trying to focus on is you're wasting your money on these dangerous supplements. But you can understand why industry put vitamin D supplements into milk. Milk does not have vitamin D. It comes out of the cow without vitamin D. They put it in at the manufacturing plant. They add it, 100 international units per serving. And they did it because of rickets. And that was even before, as far as I'm aware, the scientific literature started blaming everything that could possibly occur in human beings on lack of vitamin D supplements. And we just went through that. As geographically, as you move away from the equator, these diseases become more common. And there's less ultraviolet light as you move away from the equator. But you also change your diet as a population. You change what you eat from a starch-based diet to an animal food-based diet as you move away from the planet or the equator of the planet. So I would, you shouldn't be, we don't encourage people to drink a glass full of soy milk or almond milk. Most of them have oil in them, but not all of them. And you can certainly make your own nut milks without oil. And we don't encourage people to use these as beverages. We encourage them to use them to make their cereal look a little bit more familiar by putting a couple dabbles on their cereal, not to drink a glass full. That's not our recommendation.
Great, thank you. Molly says, I was just diagnosed with osteopenia and my doctor wants me to supplement with calcium and vitamin D. All the supplements have oil in them. What do I do? That's
another thing is most of your vitamin D capsules are in the vitamin is delivered in the capsule in an oil medium. but it's just a little bit of oil. You'd have to end up taking a bottle of oil before you got into equivalent amounts as you do at the dinner table. So what do you do about osteopenia? Okay. Osteopenia is a condition where the bones, based on bone mineral density test, reveal a thinness of the bone, of less calcium in the bone. The way they test for it is they have an instrument where they shoot photons, say through your wrist or other available bone structures, and they see how many of these photons are absorbed by your bones. And bones that are full of minerals will take and block the passage of many photons. So you will get a low bone mineral density test if your bones have less minerals. All right. What happens though, and I know this because 70% of women in their 70s flunk the bone mineral density test. They either have osteoporosis, in other words, a severely deficient test on bone mineral density, and maybe some associated fractures. That's really where you tell whether you have osteoporosis or not, is you end up having fractures due to a low amount of trauma. Okay, like for example, you just twist or turn or take a step and you break a bone. Not falling down a stairway and breaking bones. That happens to even little kids. So what happens is that about 70% of women are diagnosed as having osteoporosis or osteomalacia, in other words, being sick and in need of pills. In this case, this woman was threatened by calcium pills and by vitamin D pills by her doctor. That's his solution. Well, first of all, let me tell you, this is not a disease. This is a normal response of your highly efficient body. During your reproductive years, you store an extra 2 pounds of mineral in your bones to be available for the growing fetus and for the baby that nurses off your breast. 2 pounds of minerals you store in your bones so that you are prepared for this very important time in your life, which is to have children. When you get to menopause, you stop having ovulation. You can't have babies. So the body says, hey, why am I carrying this 2 pounds of minerals around when I have no use for them? So it dumps the minerals. And that's why women in their postmenopausal years flunk the test. It's because a normal physiologic change towards efficiency occurs when you go through menopause. So likely you don't really have a bone condition. What you want to know is how strong the bones are, how resistant they are to fracture. You don't care how dense they are. The bone density is a reflection of bone strength. It's not a one-to-one correlation. So I wouldn't, I don't prescribe calcium supplements, period. They increase the risk of heart disease, for example. They cause constipation. I don't prescribe them. What I prescribe when women really think they have bone problems, they've had some fractures, or they really have I don't know whether a really miserable bone mineral density test would convince me. It might convince them that they need to take some extra action. The extra action I take in women who have a definite concern, they've broken several bones, for example, through a low amount of traumas, I put them on antacids. Now, the most common antacid that is prescribed that people are familiar with is Tums. Tums is calcium carbonate. It's not the calcium that benefits the bones, it's the carbonate. It's the alkaline part of this particular pill that benefits the bones, because the alkaline material in the calcium carbonate, the carbonate part, neutralizes the dietary acids from the meat, the fish, the cheese, the chicken, etc. So that's why I prescribe usually 2 Tums a day. Why do I pick Tums? It's just familiar. All right. I don't pick magnesium hydroxide because it causes diarrhea. And I don't pick aluminum hydroxide because it leads to Alzheimer's disease. It's the least toxic of the supplements as Tums. But make sure you know why you're taking Tums. It's not for the calcium. It's for the antacid property. So I put them a little bit of antacid, choosing Tums. And I also put them on hormone replacement therapy. And in my book, The McDougall Program for Women, chapter 13 is on hormone replacement therapy. In there, I talk about how I have prescribed for the last 40 years and how I think you should have prescribed, if you were my patient, to take hormone replacement therapy. And by the way, I believe Heather has put this book up available for you for free on our website, drmcdougall.com. It's up right now. At least she told me yesterday it was up right now. A free copy of the McDougall Program for Women. You have to go to drmcdougall.com and you go through the shopping experience. And when you get down to the bottom line is you owe nothing. You can download the PDF file, the McDougall Program for Women. But in there, it talks about how I prescribe hormone replacement therapy, which is, it has adverse effects. You run some risks when you have estrogen or even some progesterone added to your program. There's some risks, but I think the benefits outweigh the risk as you'll find out when you read chapter 13. And I prescribe it as skin creams. I prescribe it as estradiol, which is the hormone you made when you were in your reproductive years. That's what the ovaries make, is estradiol. And I prescribe that along with a little bit of progesterone as a skin cream. I rarely add testosterone. I have occasionally in the past, but somehow the thought of a libido enhancement, but I've never seen this to be the case. So a little estrogen, a little progesterone as a skin cream used daily, and you get this from a compound pharmacy. That's the way I would treat your threat from your doctor of taking these pills. A threat, I guess. You're sick. You got to take these pills, which don't work. Why don't you take some pills that work? Dealing with the underlying problem. The underlying problem being a high acid diet and the fact that as you get older, you decrease the amount of estrogen to your body. Not a lot, because your body fat takes over. Body fat makes estrogens. It makes estrone. And so your bones stay healthy. Your bones are meant to last for a lifetime. God is not so unkind as to allow you to live to be 85 and have a set of bones that last till you're 60. That's not fair.
Dr. McDougall, you're right. Heather did email me, so I have that link in the chat in the show notes for people to get the McDougall Program for Women free this month if people would like to click that link. So thank you. And Josh is saying, but the sun is, it can cause skin damage. It can cause cancer.
Yeah. Be careful. You got to be careful. Like I say, my heritage says I should stay at 42 degrees latitude. I decided after my medical school that I'd move to 22 degrees latitude to Hawaii. And and I also bought a sailboat, an ocean-going sailboat. And for 5 years, I sailed between the islands. And I thought I was immune. I thought that nothing could take me down. I was in my 20s. And so I went out there without a hat, without sunscreen. And I sailed this beautiful ocean-going sailboat all over the Hawaiian Islands. And I burned myself. I caused skin damage, which troubles me today. And I've dealt with it very effectively, some simple measures. But, you got to be careful, especially if you move out of your environment. If you are a dark or a light-skinned person, you move to an area where they primarily had darker-skinned people, and still do. Then you run a high risk of being burnt. And like in the opposite direction, if you have a heritage of dark-skinned people and you move up north or way south, you increase your latitudes, you got to be careful to get enough sunshine. You got to get sunshine. You cannot take, if you want success, if you want to fix the problem, you've got to take the sunshine, which does so many different things for you. Sunshine is used it's a standard medical therapy for psoriasis. You go to your dermatologist, and they'll tell you you need to buy, they sell you photo lamps. But you need to get sunshine exposure to help with the psoriasis. It helps with acne. It lowers your blood pressure, lowers your bad cholesterol, raises your good cholesterol, lowers your pulse rate, relieves depression. Seasonal affective disorder, it's called. Now, sunshine is extremely valuable. I guess that's why it happens at least once a day.
Sherry's asking an interesting question. You're saying about the increased risk of fractures, but what's causing the people to fall?
Well, as you get older, things work less well than they used to. Believe it or not, at 75 years old, my windsurfing isn't as good as when I was in my 20s. So, you get older, you lose strength, you lose coordination, you deteriorate with age, which is a normal part of aging. Don't kid yourself. You're setting yourself up for failure if you believe that you're going to live forever and you're going to have the health in your 70s that you had when you were in your 20s. It ain't going to happen. But young people fall too. I have a granddaughter who broke her arm 6 months ago. She just healed like in a month. Didn't seem to bother her at all, but she got a full fracture. She's only 9 years old. So anyway, falls are more common as you get older because you just don't have the agility, the strength that you once had. And somehow or another, those little bumps in the road, they get bigger.
Okay.
The ice gets slipperier. I don't know. You got to be careful. You just have to, as particularly as you get to be, Mary's and my age at 75 and 76, you must be careful. You can't fall. Anyway, let's not go on to what's happened to me in the last 75 years. Things have changed, folks. I used to look different.
Yeah, you were quite the looker, Dr. McDougall.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I didn't have to worry about that, AJ. I fell in love, and the rest of the story was pretty much written.
Jill says she's 44 and was diagnosed with osteoporosis, and the doctor wants her to take supplements. So are you saying that diet and sunshine will be enough?
And exercise. Yeah, absolutely. But when I say absolutely, I say except I do use some drug therapies if I am convinced that the person has osteoporosis. The osteoporosis diagnosis may have been made based on a bone mineral density test. Highly inaccurate, these tests. If it was based on her having fractures, certainly more than one, due to a minimal amount of trauma. In other words, she took a step and she broke her hip. Most people who have hip fractures, they don't fall and then break their hip. Their hip breaks and then they fall. So, if you have that kind of history, then I would go the step further and I would take an antacid. First of all, I'd eat an alkaline diet, which our diet is. It's an alkaline diet. I'd stay away from the acid foods or the animal foods and isolated soy proteins. Your fake meats are just really acidic. So, stay away from those. And after I made my system alkaline, see, the body in its normal metabolism, just, working the muscles and the cells and so on, makes acid. But it makes such a small amount of acid that the body is able to get rid of it through the kidneys with no trouble at all. But when you eat all of these acid foods, it overwhelms the system with acid. You're no longer able to buffer. Okay, so you eat a good diet. You still have metabolism going on that produces acid in your body. So to make your body extra alkaline, even though you've already eaten an alkaline diet, and I know you have if you listen to us, then you might want to add a little bit of antacid. And just the fact that you're eating well, everything else is going well, and you're having these bone fractures, you want to know, well, what else can I do? Well, what else you can do is you can go on hormone replacement therapy, as I just described to you. And you know how I prescribe it now because you're going to get the McDougall Program for Women book free. At least if you're listening to the presentation live today. If it's a recorded presentation, Heather might put it back on sale, but the PDF is available for free. You can give it to all your friends. You can give it to all your relatives. You can send it to your church group. I don't care what you do with it right now. It's yours. McDougall Program for Women. Every once in a while, we put up a new book. Of the 13 national best-selling books that Mary and I have written, we own 6 of them. The other 7 are owned by publishing companies like Penguin, Putnam, Dutton owns some of our books, book publishing. owns another one of our books. They have sales rights on them because of contracts we signed. So we can't give those away free, but they're pretty cheap. You go to a used bookstore and get them for 50 cents, or get a library for nothing. But the 6 books we have for free, every once in a while, we put one of those books up. The 6 books we own, every once in a while we put one of them up for free. And Heather told me yesterday that she was putting the women's book up for free.
Thank you. Jennifer says, how long does it take to get vitamin D out of the system?
Every 15 days, it's cut in half. Okay, so you take a dose, you take 2,000 international units today. In a little over 2 weeks, you'll be down to 1,000 units. And a little over 2 weeks later, you'll be down to 500 units. I can't do all the math, so it'll take months to get all the vitamin D out of your system. But it goes, these real high doses, they go pretty quickly. Your body, the metabolism is every 15 days, the dose is cut in half for vitamin D3.
Thank you. Tammy says, is there a way to test if we have toxicity in our body of vitamin D?
No, it'd be based on clinical problems. You'd have recurrent kidney stones, for example. You'd have to you'd probably have to go into the doctor with some aches or pains or problems. The doctor would get a vitamin D level on you, which would add to the information, which would help diagnose toxicity or not. Take a history on you and find out how much vitamin D you were taking, and then come to the conclusion that vitamin D is a likely suspect. And I do want to add something to the last question, and that is the person asked me, how long does it take vitamin D to get out of the body? It never gets out of the body completely. You need vitamin D. It's hormone D. It's called hormone D. You need it. You make it in your skin. If you don't have it, then you end up getting rickets if you're a child, or osteomalacia if you're an adult, and all kinds of other problems, I'm sure, accompany these not getting enough hormone D. So you're never going to get rid of all the vitamin D in your body, not in a healthful manner. But I know you meant the supplementation. How long does it clear the body of the supplemented D pills or the shots you took? It takes every 15 days, it's cut in half.
Great, thanks. Elizabeth says, if vitamin D is fat soluble, should we eat fat so that we can absorb it?
Well, it's delivered to you in fat-containing foods. Okay, the reason they deliver it to you in milk is because whole milk's 50% fat. So there's all kinds of fat you need for absorbing these fat-soluble vitamins. The reason it's sold to you in capsules that are full of fat, there's oil in these capsules, is because you have all the fat you never need and then some to absorb the vitamin D through your intestinal wall. No, you don't have to take any added fat. And besides, you're not going to take it through your intestinal tract. You're going to take it through your skin. You get some sun. Because you're not going to take the pills. The pills and the shots are unnatural. Throughout a million years of human existence, nobody took a vitamin D pill. Nobody took a vitamin D shot for a million years. And we're still here as a race. Let me qualify that. That's not entirely true. If you are an Inuit Eskimo and you live at a very high latitude where the sun don't shine, I think it's 67 days of the year there's no sunshine at all. I mean, there are parts of the planet where there's no sunshine at all, period. Anyway, if you happen to be in that situation, you are a typical Inuit Eskimo, you say, well, I need vitamin D. Where am I going to get it from? I'm not getting enough sun. They got to be bundled up in these clothes, heavy clothes. Where are they getting the vitamin D? Well, they get it from mackerel and salmon and other migratory fish. Fish have vitamin D. The way they get the vitamin D is they migrate like 2,000 miles a year. And these salmon and these mackerel, they go and when they swim around near the surface and they get sunshine exposure to their skin and they make vitamin D. And then they swim up to Alaska and the Inuit Eskimo ate the fish. They got all the environment supports the population that lives in it. You will not do well on the McDougall diet if you live in an igloo and you have to catch all of your food with spear or hook. Do not follow the McDougall diet. You'll be in huge trouble. You're barely able to survive. The average lifespan in a typical Inuit Eskimo was 27 years because it was such a tough life. But anyway, that just shows you how your environment supports your health. And in this case of vitamin D, where you don't get enough sunshine, living at a high latitude, eat the fish. The fish got vitamin D.
Great,
So
thank
cool.
you. Sharon says, what about the fact that so many people who had trouble with COVID were found to have low levels of vitamin D3? Isn't D3 a good boost for immunity? And for those of us who live in the northern United States, we don't get much natural sunlight to raise our levels to normal levels. Do you think that vitamin D3 is at all useful for prevention or treatment of COVID or other viruses?
No. No, I think that any finding that vitamin D is associated with COVID is incidental. It's confounding. You're sick, you're not eating. You have inflammation going on. So part of the process of inflammation is to produce side substances that lower vitamin D levels. When you got COVID, you're real sick. You got really lots of inflammation going on all over your body. You're making a lot of this byproduct that lowers vitamin D. Now, what we want to ask is if vitamin D supplements made the course of COVID better. I mean, fewer people went to the hospital. Fewer people died. There are no studies that show that. There may be studies that show that people who have COVID end up with low vitamin D in their blood tests. But it's because they're sick. They're not eating. They're inflamed. So no, I don't know of anything that's been shown in a randomized controlled trial to support the use of vitamin D to treat anything except for rickets and osteomalacia. Otherwise, it's just all a fairy tale, folks. They got to have a pill for this. I know they got to have a pill. Let me go to the doctor and get a pill. Your doctor's got pills. There's somebody selling you a supplement every day. What do you think they're making the money on? There's some interesting court cases that are going on now. People who have radio shows, podcasts that sell as a side business, they sell supplements. I'm not going to mention his name. And there's several people that do this. And I hate to say there are probably a few guests on your show that do the same thing. They have millionaires. This one guy made $800,000 in a day selling supplements when he appeared in the news. This is business. Now, one of my regrets in life sort of was, well, I won't even get into it. I could have been a multi-millionaire many times, but I always felt it was necessary to be honest with myself, and I never sold out to the supplement industry. But I had a chance to many times, and I will tell you, my wealth would have been huge.
Well, it's not too late.
No, it's too late.
I'm just kidding.
Fortunately, I have everything I want. Chef AJ, including at 75 years old, I have my faculties, and I'm fully functional. We won't go into details about that, but I am fully functional. And enjoying life. I don't know what you could give me. I don't know what any more money would ever even offer me. I'll tell you, I get my reward, same place you do, and that is from knowing that you've done some good. It's fun. It's fun. And to reveal the lies that go on out there. I have a good time doing that, especially when the evidence is 100% solid and support. I showed you randomized controlled trials. I showed you meta-analyses of hundreds of trials. You're going to work hard to show me any dissenting information, I assure you. Look it up. I gave you the references in the bottom right-hand corner. Look it up. It's free on the internet, or your library can get you a copy of the article. I've got nothing to gain by giving this kind of lecture to you. You know, how much money do we make on having you go out and take your shirt off and get in the sun? How much money do I make selling potatoes?
Not much.
You know, you people, you can't, I know you know what I'm talking about. You're not naive. You know exactly, it's hard to believe, you say to yourself, it's hard to believe that when it comes to my health, that people would resort to the same morals and motivations as when it comes to my television set. You're talking about my spouse, myself, my children. You have to act at a higher level of morality than the guy who's repairing my car. But these are all people. There's no more higher moral standard for a medical doctor than it is for a used car salesman. There's no test for it when they admit you to medical school. You know, anyway, buyer beware.
But
You
so
may have heard that before.
Like you say, the vitamin D wasn't something they used to test for, and now it's routinely done, like in a physical, and everyone is saying their doctor wants their numbers higher. And how do they tell their doctors no?
Show them my presentation.
Good idea.
I don't know what, because unfortunately, very few people have the passion that I have about the scientific literature. You've heard me say many times that at my lowest point, I read 13 medical journals a month. That's what I like to read. Mary reads novels. I read medical journal articles.
I just wonder if the doctors will watch.
Chooses to read the science and continues to practice medicine based upon the stories told. Are we losing our picture again?
No, you're right there. I can see you fine.
Well, your doctor learns from conferences that are supported by the drug and food industries. Okay, if you're, there are a few exceptions out there, but most of medical conferences doctors go to, they have a break room where they have all these booths set up to sell you whatever, various instruments that your dentist will buy, and ultrasound machines your doctors will buy, and all kinds of pills and potions. And the dairy industry and the meat industry, they have their booth. So they pay for the medical conferences your doctors go to. And then the only other education your doctor gets is from the drug detail women. They take these young women, almost always, there are young women, and they dress them up provocatively, and they bring them in to spend some sexual time with their male doctors. You don't think men doctors enjoy having visits from very attractive salespeople? Come on now. And of course, that's not how you get by the front staff. I mean, they're generally women who aren't bought on by all this beauty and all this, you know what I'm talking about. So you got to buy them off with pizza and donuts. Then you get in to see the doctor, and the doctor has got control over how many drugs. I've been banned for almost my whole career. I've been banned from having these drug detail women come to my office. Dr. McDougall, you ain't going to visit him. It's a waste of time. Why? Because the drug companies know my prescribing habits, because they get the records from the pharmacies, and they see that Dr. McDougall prescribes virtually nothing. Well, a little bit, thyroid pills, statins once in a while. So I'm not marketed to, but your doctors are. They used to be that we had booths set out outside the doctor's lounge, where they used to give supplements to the doctors as they went into the doctor's lounge, which was filled with cigarette smoke. Back when I started, and I was a medical student, I wasn't even a doctor, and they'd give me all kinds of things that are illegal. Those pretty wild drugs they used to pass out, which were party drugs. Anyway, they've gotten away from that. Most hospitals and institutions, they ban the drug companies from direct contact with their doctors. So they know. And the amount of payola has decreased, but it's still there. That's where your doctor gets his or her education, I'm sad to say. Conferences paid for by industry, and salespeople paid for by industry. There's an occasional exception.
I don't see my doctor like watching this if I were to say something to him. You know what I'm saying?
What if you paid him $200? Hey, doc, listen, this is my health. I'm going to spend $200 on supplements this month. Why don't I give you the $200 for an hour of your time? Would you watch what Dr. McDougall has to say? Tell me why he's wrong.
Okay, my doctor is a plant-based doctor, and I think you know him and like him, and I'm going to ask him. I will ask him.
Well, again, I do these presentations with you, AJ, and a lot of presentations, almost all of them for free. And we do this 5 o'clock every Sunday night at 5 o'clock Pacific time. We're on live to answer, Mary and I and Heather, to answer your questions. No gimmicks. You can turn us off whenever you want, every Sunday night at 5 o'clock Pacific time. And we do that for nothing. Well, that's not entirely true. We do it because, we want to see you do well. We want the reward from, I can't tell you the number of people I write every day, certainly every week, where I start off the conversation by saying, you made my day. Tell me a story about how they got rid of their rheumatoid arthritis or whatever, canceled their heart surgery, whatever. And they'll thank me, which is great, but I just love hearing the story. And I'll write back to them, and as I usually just say congratulations, but probably 3 or 4 or 5 times a week, I'll start out the conversation. You made my day. And they really did. I haven't been able to change the world, but the reward I've gotten from helping an occasional person has been really, 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 really made my life worthwhile. So anyway, your doctor should be reading this material. I know he or she's busy with family and the stock market and golf, and there are lots of things but their primary responsibility, we took an oath to do right for our patients. We took an oath. It's supposed to be a field that is above the average that a person would go into. We ought to be picking the cream of the crop to give them this trusted position. But as I say, that there's no way of finding people with high moral value on the medical school admission forms.
People are asking if you can absorb vitamin D through glass.
Not much. Ultraviolet light is pretty much filtered through glass. But you can grow plants in greenhouses, so there's some light that goes through. The question would be the spectrum that is taken out that produces vitamin D. And my memory is that it's quite a bit taken out by the glass. So you shouldn't expect to get sunburn. And I remember this from the days before we had air conditioners in cars. We used to ride down the street with our left arm outside the window. And most of us had a sunburned arm or a very well tanned left arm. But I never remember that happening after we got air conditioners. We kept the windows rolled up. I never remember getting a suntan through my windshield. But I do remember getting a suntan when I rolled down the window and I stuck my arm out in the breeze.
Yeah. People keep, you did a talk, I believe, on my channel about osteoporosis. I'll double check because people are just so worried that they don't.
I did it. Yeah. Or maybe we should do one. It's part of our standard education for the 12-day program, as I give a lecture on osteoporosis and diet and so on. A lot of the things I just shared with you, and plus you can read the women's book, which is being offered for free right now at this moment, which is the 5th of October, 2022.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that.
So you got any more questions? I love it.
There's a couple more questions. Misty says, I was told vitamin D is a hormone vitamin. Does vitamin D help with anxiety and depression?
No, but sunshine does. Vitamin D, see, there's something called seasonal affective disorder. And you buy light boxes, which you're supposed to set up on your desk when you're doing your other work. You've got this light that imitates a spectrum, which relieves depression. Seasonal SAD, seasonal affective disorder. And it explains why people in states that are of high latitude, like for example, I used to work in Egan, Minnesota. All right, we ran a program there in the 2000s where we took care of the employees of Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they were throughout the state. And I taught my program to 3 groups of people, and we showed a 44% reduction in healthcare costs based on their claims data and people who went through our program. 44%. Anyway, I was seeing the patients, and I currently carry an active Minnesota license. You can look it up. Go to the state board. Dr. John McDougall has a license number. He's licensed there. I got licensed in the year 2000 to run this program. But I would see the patients, and I would see so many depressed people. I would guess 20 to 40% of my female patients in midlife were on antidepressants. And, part of the problem was Minnesota used to be very cloudy. Not much anymore. So thank God for global warming, right? I'm just joking. Folks, I'm joking. Anyway, it's not going to relieve depression to take the pills or the shots, but it will relieve depression if you get sunshine.
Yeah, thank you. Jennifer says, can taking vitamin D supplements cause tingling and nerve?
I've never heard of such, whether it could cause tingling. I don't think you'd get a, you're taking these oily supplements. There's something called a fish burp. When you take fish oil supplements, I wonder if you have a vitamin D burp.
She wonders if it can cause nerve tingling, buzzing, and other nerve issues.
Not that I'm not aware of that, but it's possible. There are lots of side effects. There's a whole section on central nervous system side effects, which I gave you the reference to. And I would just start looking there. I'd search the internet and ask that question and see whether or not there's adequate research to explain it. Well, just stop taking the supplement. Put your shorts on, your short sleeve shirt, and go out in the sun. I know it's fall.
But you do want us to take one supplement, right? B12, is that correct?
Well, that's a whole nother lecture, yeah.
Right. But just because people are asking.
B12 is the only supplement I recommend. And you ask, why would he recommend any supplements if his darn diet's so perfect? Well, B12 comes from bacteria. We live in a very hygienic world. People are afraid of bacteria. Maybe that's the reason. I think so.
Oh, here's an interesting question from Danita. For people that are in nursing homes or long-term care with really no access to sunshine, then would you recommend vitamin D supplementation?
Yes. Yeah. In the studies, and again, I can show you the studies, are really easy to find. What you'll find is vitamin D supplements. They've been shown to have benefit in elderly, institutionalized white women, but only if they're prescribed as vitamin D plus calcium. Remember my discussion about how taking antacids, calcium antacids, takes care of the dietary acids? So why would it be that the only supplements that have been shown to benefit are in people who are at the extremes of the environment? And you have to take calcium with it. Well, it tells me that vitamin D, again, doesn't work. And when they combine it with a calcium pill, they're combining it with an antacid, and that does show us a little bit of benefit. But you will get more benefit for grandma taking her out for a wheelchair walk in the sunshine than giving her the supplements, even the one with calcium. So yeah, there is this body of research that shows that elderly, institutionalized white women show a decrease in fractures if they take a supplement of vitamin D plus an antacid like calcium.
Okay, thanks. This was great, Dr. McDougall. It was a great talk.
Well, I haven't run out of things to talk to people about. So I hope I get an invitation back again. I guess I hope. Anyway, I look forward to the time.
You're usually the first Monday of the month, and we call it McDougall Monday. This is unusual for us to be together on a Wednesday.
Well, I want to give you a talk, and it just depends upon me getting the time and interest in doing it. I want to give you a talk about these omega-3 fats and why this nonsense you should get rid of in your life to take these supplements of flaxseed oil and fish oil. These are dangerous. DHA and EPA. These things will hurt you. Anyway, I'd like to give you a talk on that, and maybe you could invite one of your vitamin D or your essential fatty acid, EPA and DHA supplement salespeople on either afterwards, after I give the lecture, to explain to you why I'm wrong. That'd be fun. Wouldn't that be fun?
Or maybe just have them on with you.
Well, I'd want to have a chance I would want to have a chance to present the information first, because I'm starting from an unpopular point of view. So you need to hear this side of the story first. And then when we get into the back and forth discussion, you'll at least have a basis for understanding why I take my point of view. And you'll also have a body of information which this person who believes other than I do must react to. But otherwise, you just get a screaming match. Nothing's accomplished. And when some of your guests are younger and handsomer than I am, they might win over. So again, I'd like to give a presentation first, and then to have somebody who doesn't believe what I'm saying is true to come on and explain to the people why what I said is untrue or irrelevant. Tell me. But you need to hear the information first. You need to hear things like, for example, the fat you eat's the fat you wear. I don't care whether it's fish fat or flaxseed fat. It's going to make you fat. The fat you eat's the fat you wear. These things have pharmacologic properties. Your omega-3 fats, they may reduce your risk of heart disease if they're taken, by the way, in the form of fish, not fish oil. But if they're taken in the form of fish, you may reduce your risk of heart disease and maybe stroke. But they do it by thinning the blood. And when you thin the blood, you're at an increased risk of bleeding to death. And so taking these supplements increases the risk of for example, if you get in an auto accident. I have patients who tell me that when they take fish oil supplements and they wipe their butt, they bleed. So you need to hear all the information. And as we discussed in our talk about I don't know whether we're talking about Alzheimer's or we're talking about vitamin or these kind of essential fatty acid supplements. Yeah. Preventing Alzheimer's. Remember, we had a discussion about that.
Because the Sherzais are very much promoting it on Instagram that everyone take the omega-3 liquid.
And doing what? That's the kind of person I'd like to have you on to give you the other side of the story, but give me a chance to tell you why they're not and show you the evidence. Because you've heard over and over again, and they have a financial motivation for you believing this.
I'm not sure the Sherzais are selling any supplements, though.
Okay, well then don't bring them up as an example.
All right, but they're promoting it. They're saying that we need it. Is what I'm saying.
Then what we need to do is have a discussion so you as the consumer can weigh the information.
Okay, that sounds great. I look forward to it.
But I'm going to insist that they answer the points of view and they show me the research.
Yeah.
Again, for 1 million years, people have survived without these supplements. The problem's the food. The solution's the food. If you make some argument and you come back to the food, okay, well, you're right. It's the food. Yeah, are essential fats made by plants? Yeah, they are. Should you be eating plants? Yes, you should. Should you be taking pills? No, you shouldn't. So yeah, essential fats are essential. You get it from the food, from potatoes and corn, olives, nuts, oatmeal. Oatmeal is 16% fat.
Yeah.
A third to half of the fat is essential fat.
Oh.
Anyway, that'd be a fun discussion. It would be done in a friendly way. I'd be happy to entertain that. But again, I'd like to have the format. Let me show you what the problems are, and then they can tell you why I'm wrong.
Okay.
But I'm sure the guests that you mentioned are very familiar with the scientific literature. But what you need to do is you need to step back and say, well, let's see. How do I want to act based upon what I just heard?
Makes sense. I look forward to that next talk, Dr. McDougall.
Well, I don't know whether I'm going to have the omega-3 fat talk ready for you. I will. Again, I'm running a 4-part series, half day, live, limited audience, starting in November, 4 Sundays in a row. And you can find out about these half-day seminars, which are very, very, it's not me just lecturing to you. It's a situation where you get to interact and where you get to take the information home. We're going to do one on protein first. That'll be sometime early November of 2022. And then we'll go on to fats, which is in November. So I'll probably be prepared by then. And then we're going to go on to starches. And then we're going to do an extended version of the vitamin and mineral thing. A lot more I need to tell you about the vitamins and minerals than I've told you so far. So we're doing this 4-part series, and you can sign up for it at our website and find out more about it. And then don't forget, every Sunday night at 5 o'clock Pacific time, Mary and I and Heather will be there to answer your questions. You can get as personal as you want. That's the focus, is to get you interested in the McDougall program. And if we can do that, I'm sure you're going to be people who end up with being the kind of people we like, who get well. And it's nice to hear the praise too. Hey, I got well. Hey, I lost 100 pounds. It's nothing. I'm a doctor. My job is to help people get well and prevent problems. That's why I went into this, or part of the reason I went into this. I'm sure almost every other doctor is the same thing. They did it to help people. I just happen to have a tool that is more powerful than anything else that I'd ever learned about in medical school. No pill, no device, surgery. I mean, the food is huge. And, whereas you might get some help for these pills and devices and surgeries, they should be the second line after you fix the underlying problem. And I've asked our listeners over and over again is, yeah, I know you heard another point of view about having your breast amputated or having your chest cut open or taking these expensive diabetic medications. I know you've heard that. I know almost every doctor offers these things to you because that's part of the medical practice. That's what you hear on cable news network. Advertisement after advertisement, these drugs that cost thousands of dollars. So you're not going to have any trouble finding somebody to prescribe such for you or to offer you heart surgery or amputations of your breast or whatever. But don't you think it'd be better if you went to the doctor's office with a different point of view, a challenging opinion? It's the second book I wrote that was a national bestseller. It was called McDougall's Medicine, a challenging second opinion. So learn this second opinion first. And then when you get all done, you say to yourself, I'm not gonna eat that way. Even though I know what they're recommending doesn't work, I'm going to take that. It's up to you. You're over 21. You're a free thinking person. You should be allowed to decide, but you're not allowed to decide, as far as I'm concerned, if you don't have the truth. You don't have the whole story. And what I hope you've gained out of the presentations that I've given is not just some things to believe in, because Dr. McDougall sounds good. I hope I've been able to open your mind to allow you to see this. So it's your knowledge. So you can evaluate whatever goes on with you in the world based upon this information. You read like last month that statin drugs are oversold. They rarely help people. Well, Dr. McDougall has been telling me that, and he's told me why. It's because people don't have statin deficiency. It's the food. So let me give you another background, another way of thinking things. I'm not gonna kick you with the attitude that the problem is your fault. But that's what we're taught in medical school, is to blame the patient. You have bad genes. You inherited these problems from your family, parents, grandparents. I can't fix genes. Even if it's true, I can't fix them. Or the problem is that you're neurotic, psychological. Hey, life's tough. I can't fix that either. That's a hard one. That's why we have Dr. Doug Lisle. So if I take out, I meet you and I look at you from the point of view that you're just a genetic mishap or, psychological problem, I can't help you. But if instead I meet you and you're 60 pounds overweight and you're on a bag full of pills, and I say there's a healthy body lurking under all those problems, all we got to do is bring it out. You are healthy. You're always trying to heal. We just got to fix the reason you're sick. With that attitude, then what happens is you lose the weight. You get off the drugs. You get your health back. Because I started out thinking you were a healthy person. And it should be that way from your doctor too. Your doctor should look at you and say, all right, this is a trim, active person who ought to be doing this and this and this at his stage in life or her stage in life. And why is this not happening? What is the problem? The problem is not taking supplements, okay? The problem is not taking pills from the pharmaceutical industry. That's not the problem. They cause some, changes in some of the risk factors or numbers or something. You never get better. You never get. Well, don't you get tired of going to the doctor every month or 3 months and with the same complaints over and over again? I know your doctor is tired of seeing you. You never get better. You should stop that. You should instead take the attitude, look, life is short. I want to get the most I can out of it. And so let's figure out why you're sick. Let's figure out how to fix the problem. And we have a solution for you that works. How often does it work? Basically all the time. People always get better. What does it cost? Nothing. Cut your food bill by as much as 80%. Cut your pharmaceutical bill, your hospital bill, your doctor bill. Where's the downside? Anyway, that's if you listen to me enough and AJ enough, you'll probably get to the point of view where you'll say, I deserve better. And you'll see once you try it that you can have better without any limitations. And if I can help you along the way, remember, we'll be available every Sunday night, 5 o'clock Pacific time on the McDougall channel, live. You can write in the chat your questions or beforehand. And I'll answer them. I'll answer every single one of them, even the most, or I'll say I can't. I don't know the answer. But a lot of things I've learned in the last half century, so I'd like to share them with you.
Well, thank you, Dr. McDougall. That's so kind of you.
Well, AJ, what is going on in your life that we can finish this discussion up with? Are there any other callers?
Let's see. Well, what I'm doing is I'm writing a couple of books.
Oh, tell me about it.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm writing a dessert cookbook, and I used to be a pastry chef at a Los Angeles restaurant. Of course, it was vegan and oil-free, and I also didn't use sugar. And so that's my next book that's coming out, and I'm very excited about it. Working with one of your publishers, the one that did Digestive Tune-Up, Bob.
Oh, yeah. They're a book publishing company. They're a good company. I've been with them since 2006. Yeah. So they're nice folks. They always give you a fair deal.
Yeah.
I know that when Mary and Heather hear that you're coming out with a dessert cookbook, the first thing that they're going to ask is it simple? Or am I going to have to spend a half a day in the kitchen?
Most of my recipes, there's maybe a couple that are a little bit more involved, but most of them are pretty easy.
That's the practical point of view. There's a cookbook I'd like to mention that just came out. It's by the Esselstyns.
Yeah, whoa, my gosh. Yeah, I have it right here. It's fabulous. It was a New York Times bestseller.
That's what they say. They deserve it. Yeah. But a whole bunch of course, the Esselstyns teach the same program that Mary and I teach for a really important reason. And that is that he's a very ethical man. Cardinal Esselstyn is. I've known him for over 30 years. And we've had a lot of interaction, and his motivation is to help his patients get better, and they do. And his family's joined him. There's so much parallel between the Esselstyn family and my family. And the Campbell family's another example. These are family businesses, and there are reasons for that. So I'm glad you have the book by the Esselstyns, the new cookbook.
It's terrific.
Everybody should have a copy of it on there. So that's one book you're writing on desserts, and they should have a copy of that. When does it come out?
Well, I think summer of next year. When you go with a publisher, it takes a lot longer than when you do it yourself.
It does, but it's well worth the trouble. They'll make sure your books get well publicized.
Absolutely.
My book is still a bestseller from 2006. How many years ago is that? A long time, 18 years.
Yeah. You've written 13 books? Is that how many you've written?
We have 13 national best-selling books. We did a book on our own, like when you started out. We have a book that we put together, which many people still have. It's called Making the Change. And I put that together when I first went out of practice and started doing this. I had no recipes for my patients. So we used a mimeograph machine. We'll go way back before you know what one of those is. And a typewriter. We had an IBM Selectric typewriter. And we typed out these recipes and we mimeographed them off. And then as the patients came in every month that we saw them, we'd give them new recipes. They put them in this ring-bound notebook so that you could open the rings and put the recipes in. It's called Making the Change. And the reason I called it Making the Change is because that's the problem, is get people to change. Still, it's the focus of everything we do is how do we get you to make the change? I could have called it Heal and Stay Healthy or Reverse Heart Disease or, don't ever get cancer or whatever. But that's not the problem or where any argument comes in. It's how do I get you to do it? And it's not an easy thing to do. Having great cookbooks.
What do you think is the reason people don't make the change? Your evidence is so convincing. People say it's too hard. They can't do it. I think it's because they're food addicts. I think that's why they can't change. But just to challenge you a bit, Chef AJ, you changed. I did, but I acknowledge that I had a food addiction, but I don't understand with all the evidence you're presenting why so few people really do it.
Yeah, I don't either. I've been working on that for a long time. Change is hard for people. And, you can change by negative motivation. In other words, you go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, the pills don't work anymore. We have to put you on insulin. Or that stomach and chest pain you have is probably your heart. We're going to have to do heart surgery. That's a negative way to change. And a lot of people change that way. The other way you can change is with positive inputs, like your show. And each time, I bet almost all of your listeners, your viewers, are thinking to themselves, well, I'll do a little better this week. Or this, I'll do better until tomorrow when I hear Chef AJ again and she'll motivate me again. But I kind of wonder, as long as you brought the subject up, for many years you knew about us and you felt like you were a food addict, which, I can understand.
Yeah. Well, no, I just said, no, I can't do it. It's too hard.
Well, okay, but why? Why was it too hard?
Just because I think I was addicted to those high fat, high sugar foods.
So how did you fix that addiction?
By abstaining from them. It's the easiest way to fix an addiction.
So the first lady, Nancy Reagan, she used to talk to drug addicts. And what did she say to drug addicts? Say no. Just say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where people have to get to. They have to get enough information. It took Mary and I at least 2 years to change our diet.
Wow.
But we had no guidance. And you just get to the point where you realize that you just have to say no. And even today, we went to the grocery store a few days ago and we got to the vegan ice cream aisle. And I looked at Mary and she looked at me and we said, no. And that's the only reason we didn't go down that aisle is because we know what the consequence of bringing chocolate, peanut butter, vegan ice cream into the house is. It gets eaten often the first thing. You have to understand your behavior and realize that you can't do a little bit. Moderation kills. And if you want to be different, you have to be different. You have to do different. And big changes beget big results. And you finally got to the point where you just had enough. You'd learned enough positive things, and you'd had enough negative things happen in your life where you just said, look, I'm a drug addict. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a tobacco addict. I'm a food addict. The only way addicts handle these situations is they have to say no, I think. What do you think?
No, I completely agree with you. It's the concept of the pleasure trap.
Yeah, great book, great ideas.
Oh, you endorsed, you wrote the foreword to that book.
Did I? Well, that's good. I couldn't have written it for nicer, more well-deserving people than Doug Lyle and Alan Goldhammer. There's a couple of men who have really made a lot of difference in people's lives.
What they point out, we weren't created for this environment. That's the part of the problem is we weren't created for vegan ice cream.
Yeah, they've taken, industries discovered what our pleasures are, and they've made it available. But hey, look, people who use drugs, alcohol, tobacco, they do it because they like it. There's a lot of pleasure. And unfortunately, there's a lot of negative things that come along with it. To the point where they lose their families, they get in serious accidents. And, they finally say, look, I got to come to deal with this. And I've never met a smoker who's cut down and quit, ever. They've decided that they're going to quit 100%. You can't just cut down. I've never met an alcoholic who switched to beer and wine and solved any of their problems. You got to say no. You got to just say no. And so, yeah. But the nice thing is with your work and my work and Esselstyn's work and Campbell's work and Dean Ornish's work and lots of other people out there that have kind of made this an important thing in their life, is they've made it easier for you. They've made it simple to the sense that we teach you that you should live on pretty much a monotonous diet. Have the same thing for breakfast every day. Heather just put on Instagram, what do the McDougalls, what do John and Mary eat? So it's on our Instagram page. And
I saw that.
I was looking at the pictures yesterday, and you look at it, you go, my goodness, they have oatmeal every day for breakfast with fruit. Oh my goodness, same thing. I don't have to think about it. I know exactly what I'm gonna have in the morning for breakfast. And then it showed a few other of our dishes, sweet potatoes, a healthier peanut sauce, and I don't know what all the dishes that Mary showed, but it was really beautiful food. The interesting thing is that people are learning this, Chef AJ. When we get people who belong to our Instagram page or whatever the heck it is, I don't even know how to get there, but people who follow us by these social media things, wow, they learn, and they come back with recipes that we look at and we go, that's beautiful, that's simple, I really want to try that. It's simple, it's easy to put together. Obviously enjoyable. People love potatoes. They love sweet potatoes. They love rice. They love bread. They like pasta. They love these things. Why do you love these things? Because that's your food. Anyway.
Yeah, here it is, Dr. McDougall, from your Instagram page, all the different
That's really cool.
foods. And you've got the pizza looks amazing. Let me show you. That Mary's, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, she usually makes the pizza crust, but every once in a while she wants to be a little more efficient and picks one up in the store. And the grocery stores have pretty good pizza crusts. They're not perfect. They're certainly going to be something you have just on occasion. But she'll make bean bowls, which I sometimes have as a burrito, and then we'll have bean enchiladas, and that's a great recipe too, with corn tortillas. And then she'll make a bean pizza. By that time, the beans are spoiled and they get thrown out.
Well, the pictures are mouthwatering. And that's why I can't understand why we would look at animal products and think it's delicious.
Yeah, you mean all the blood and blood vessels. Even when I was a hardcore meat eater when I was a little kid, my mom would make roast beef on Sundays, and I can remember this as it happened yesterday. I'd be cutting through the roast beef, and all of a sudden this slimy worm would pop up in the middle of the piece of cow butt. This was a blood vessel. The blood vessel popped up right in front of me in my plate. It even disgusted me then. I somehow got used to the muscle fibers if I covered them up with steak sauce and a lot of salt. of being able to eat them. But yeah, you're right. I don't understand how people can, yellow liquid, cheese and milk, and that's yellow liquid. Looks good with it's chocolate or strawberry, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're making it into chocolate vegan ice cream. Oh boy, you could sell that to me. They had to do that. The dairy industry learned it early. That the only way they could win over the public is to disguise their food. So, for little kids, they put it into cartons. So you couldn't see the liquid, you couldn't see the milk. Or they early on learned how to put chocolate and sugar in it and strawberries and sugar. Make it, they don't serve it with translucent straws. You can't see the fluid being sucked up out of the carton into your mouth. They serve it with opaque straws so you can't see it. They know that. They know that their stuff is disgusting. Anyway, we could go into that in greater detail, but our food is the best. It's the tastiest, most colorful, most interesting. It just happens to be the healthiest. You're not familiar with it. I know you're not, or a lot of you aren't. So get on with it. Get busy. Instead of one of your packaged sausage meals tomorrow for breakfast, why don't you try and make hash browns with no oil and put some ketchup over the top, or some oatmeals with some fruit, or even cold cereals like shredded wheat. One step at a time. Unfortunately, sometimes things get just like you and me, and we're all the same. It gets to the point where you said, I've had enough. I don't want to be this way anymore. And you realize that you have to just say no.
And if people need help making the change, you have a 12-day program starting in about 10 days.
So it's 10 days, yeah. Just got the schedule for it. It looks really good. I give at least 5 lectures, and every morning Mary and I meet with the crowd. It's called a fireside morning chat. And then I look at our transition, AJ, from me starting as an office practice in Kailua, Hawaii, and then being brought over by St. Helena Hospital to California, and spending 16 years working out of the most famous hospital in the country. St. Helena Hospital is number 2 for heart surgery in California. And I worked there for 16 years and took care of people in a hospital setting. I didn't realize till later on that they didn't want to come to me at a hospital because they didn't associate good health with hospitals. They associated sick people, and they were right, even though we ran a separate division, almost like a hotel attached to the hospital to run our program. And we went from there to a resort-based program. And we learned a lot along the way. And what we learned was that, people need a lot of support. They need a lot of education, information, but they need support. So when we transitioned, thanks to COVID-19, we transitioned in August of 2020. So we've been at it for over 2 years now. What we found is we had to deliver the support, the interaction, that people needed to make these changes. So in addition to the information, which you can get for free over the internet, go to the YouTube channel, you can get it there. Or you go to our website. It's a 12-day program. It lays out everything, menus, the whole thing for you. It's free. And what we offer them is we offer them the support they need, the time with Mary and I. And then one of the best things that we've added to the program, and we hear this just over and over again. People used to at the resort or at St. Helena Hospital used to sit down after meals and sit and talk to each other about how they were doing, what kind of difficulties they were having, what foods they liked or didn't like, what staff they liked or didn't like. They had that kind of personal interaction at the dinner table. But once we started running it over the internet, that was lost. And so what we do now is every morning, we start out with an hour and a half or 2 hours of interaction time between participants. Like we have it's almost a full program, the one you mentioned. So it's going to be, a lot of people, but not too many. They have a couple of hours to sit down and talk to each other about what they think of the program, how they're doing, what their life was like before. No staff are there. We don't want to even know about it. But that kind of interaction people find is extremely, and they make friends. They make friends so that they carry on after the 12-day program. And, people for 2 years are still getting together once a week over the internet. What a world we live in. Isn't it amazing? So we do that. And then we have three support specialists. They have to be young women, very talented. One of them has worked with us for well over 20 years. And they will help you. They meet with you every morning. They talk to you about your blood pressure and your blood sugar and how you're feeling and what you're going to make for the foods today and what challenges you have during the business meeting you have planned for the day. And they're there with you every morning, not just for the 12 days, but they stay with you weekly for a while after that. And then you have support for a year. So, some people decide after a year of having this personal support every week that they want to continue it. And so, people have an opportunity to continue to get support every day for 5 years or 10 years, whatever you'd like. We're available for you. So the program has changed to one that is more effective than the St. Helena program, more effective than the resort program. We've published data from both. I published in the scientific literature research papers on both programs. People do better now than they ever did before on the internet program because of the things that we've learned over the years and the support and the knowledge. So it's hopefully we never have to go back. We get asked all the time whether or not we're going to run another in-person program. I certainly hope not, but we may. We have no plans to do it. Just like we have no plans where we live, we can look at the water, and there's a dock that we can see. And every weekend, there'll be 2 ships that appear at the dock to take on loads of passengers. And one of these ships, in fact, 2 of them, or there are 3 ships that come. 2 of these ships are from the National Geographic. And we took the National Geographic trip to Alaska and we take them to Panama. No, not Panama. Well, anyway, where else did we go on the National Geographic? Just Alaska. Just Alaska. So we see these ships come through, and people, we think to ourselves, would we ever run a McDougall adventure trip? And we ran those, we did about 15 of them to Costa Rica, and we went through the Panama Canal and went through took 60 people down the Amazon. Anyway, I don't know that we'll ever do those again, but the thought comes up. But we're really happy with what we're able to accomplish now through the internet. Don't hold your breath for another McDougall adventure trip. But I bet we could run one in 3 months and we'd have this cabin sold out just like we used to in 24 hours. So if you hear about us running another McDougall adventure trip, don't wait till the next day. It's going to be sold out. We had that much fun.
Yeah, it was fun seeing you in person, though.
Oh, yeah, I suppose. There's also an interaction that happens when you do live events that you can't get on the internet. So there are things that are missing. But if you had to take over all the gains and the losses for the people, it would charge 1/3 as much as what they used to have to pay. Instead of spending $10,000 on the program and the travel and et cetera, an average of $10,000 it would cost people to come. It's less than 1/3 of that amount. No.
Wow.
And, it's an amazing world, and it's an exciting world, and it's a dangerous world. And if you choose, you can close your eyes and act like it's not happening, or you can go with the flow of this, as they say. And we went with the flow, and we ended up doing some really wonderful things with the telemedicine program, teleeducation, telehealth, internet. You can watch us in your pajamas, or you can watch us afterwards. That's the other thing, is that everything is recorded, and we take care of folks that are in Shanghai and Hong Kong and Berlin, and some of the places I remember people joined us in recent programs. The night and day is switched around, and doesn't matter. You can watch it at your convenience. But it's the only way I just want to emphasize again, it's the only way we take new patients. You cannot call up and say, I'd like an appointment with Dr. Lim or Dr. Well, you can with Dr. Lim, but not with Dr. McDougall. The only way that I have a chance to see is you have to be a McDougall patient. If you are interested in the program, we have a fee where you can meet with Dr. Lim and he can talk to you about your ailments and what we'll do to help you get well. It's very inexpensive, relatively very inexpensive. And you meet with Dr. Lim, and if you decide to go to the program, the fee that you paid for that interaction is taken off of the fee for the whole program. If you decide not to come, which almost nobody does, then we charge you the small amount. So, we're doing that. But otherwise, if you really want to become one of our patients, you have to put in the time. I don't take one night stands anymore.
That's good. Well, I guess we don't get to see Mary today, but maybe she'll come on next month.
Well, she did. I'd like her to come over and say a word to you. But what I will do is I'll just kind of leave the screen and you can talk to her for a minute, okay?
Sure.
And thank you, AJ. It was a fun hour or hour and a half or whatever we spent together.
I have to monitor the chat, so I'm going to have to watch the talk again. And we'll consolidate that as its own presentation for people that don't want to watch the whole thing. We usually do that. And guys, please come back at 2 p.m. today. We have a bonus show. It's a plant-based nurse named Sheila Ames, and she's going to be making cowgirl caviar and talking to us about plant-based nutrition as well. And don't forget, 5 p.m. Pacific time on Sundays for McDougall AM. Hi, Mary. How do you like the show on Sundays?
Oh, have you been watching it?
I don't always get to watch live. I did watch the Linda Middlesworth live, but I watch the replay always.
Oh, we have fun. I really enjoy doing that. And it's such a great opportunity to talk to people that feel like they need a little extra help, or they just want to ask a few questions. They want to see if John and I are really real people.
If there's any doubt, that's hilarious. That is so funny. Yeah, that is so much fun that you're doing that, and that's how people can get their questions answered now if they're not in the program, for example.
Yeah, that's why we do it, because we always find that, especially after John does a show with you, we always find that the people have questions, and this is one way where anybody can join in and ask their question, and it gets answered. So
you've been doing this so long, and you guys are both so patient. Like, have you ever had a question that hasn't been asked yet? You know what I mean? Because I find that I sometimes get like, I've already answered that like 100 times.
Oh yes, well, we get a lot of those, but no, every once in a while, we'll get someone will come up with some ask about some new drug or some disease that John hasn't heard about in years. And so that's different, but he always has an answer.
Yeah. And when he doesn't know, he'll tell us.
Yeah. And then he'll tell you next time, because he'll look it up and he'll figure it out. And then the next time he sees you.
Now, I noticed it was a little bit different behind you. We used to have you like it was a big window. Did you move, or did you just change your set?
We moved our set to the other side of the condo because at certain times of the day, the sun is on that side of the windows, and it was really hard to have the sun behind us. And so for here, we have the lights looking towards us, and we have the windows on this side.
No, it looks really good, actually. So I just thought maybe you moved.
No, we're still in the same place.
Nice. Well, you guys are great. And people keep asking, and you probably never want to do a cooking demo again. I mean, like even on your own channel, but people they really want to see you cook.
It's interesting that you asked this, because Heather's been talking about it. And I think, I'm not positive yet, but we sort of have tentative plans for Heather and I to do a holiday preparation cooking show in November this year. So,
that's fantastic. So that would be like on your Sunday show?
No, it'll probably be separate. I'm not sure exactly when. I don't think it'll be a question and answer type thing. I think it'll be something that Heather and I film in our kitchen here. And we prepare things like stuffed pumpkin, and we show people how to do mashed potatoes and make the gravy, and probably have to show them at least one dessert.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
our sweet potato, our favorite sweet potato dishes. And so that's kind of our plan, is to film this and then put it out on our YouTube channel before the holidays come along.
I think that would be fabulous.
It should be fun.
Like
Yeah.
a mother-daughter cook-along, and maybe get your granddaughter involved too. Have 3 generations.
Maybe. Yeah.
That is fantastic.
She's only 10 yet, so she's a little bit young, but she gets her hands in there once in a while.
Hey, to never, never too late. 3
No,
generations.
no, I started cooking with the boys when they were really young. So,
yep.
So Chloe would probably like it too.
Oh yeah. There's a live viewer asking for hair secrets. They say your hair is so shiny. Do you blow dry it? Do you have any hair secrets?
Some people have asked me this before, and I've been using the same shampoo and conditioner for probably 20 years. It's made by Aveda, and it's called Shampure.
Yeah,
you can actually buy it
cruelty-free and vegan, by the way.
Yes, it is. And you can buy it. You can even buy it through Amazon now. Nice. But there's a little place that's just down the street from us that's an Aveda salon. And so I can go there and buy the products that I need. And I've been using that. And I don't blow dry my hair that often, because I've heard that if you blow dry your hair too often, it's not good for the ends. So I usually just let it dry, and just kind of run my fingers through it while it's air drying, and that's all I have to do to it. I'm just lucky.
Very simple. Very simple. Yeah. People are saying they love your peanut sauce. Is that your most popular recipe, would you say?
I almost think so. And we've been talking about that tonight, and I think that's probably what we're going to have for dinner tonight, is sweet potatoes and vegetables and peanut sauce. Just because it's one of our favorites. It's easy to make and simple. So, but I would say a close second is the golden gravy. People look for things to put over their starches. And so the peanut sauce is one, and the golden gravy is another one. And then my creamy dill sauce that I make, I think probably are the favorites. Everybody looks for a sauce just to kind of add to simple things. And that's why we really like simple foods, because all you have to do to make them special is just to add a really delicious sauce that you pour over the top. And all of the sauces that I make, you can be made ahead of time. And I make double batches of the gravy when I make it. I make a double batch of peanut sauce, just keep it in the refrigerator, and it lasts for a couple of weeks if it lasts that long.
That's really the key, Mary, the sauce, because people don't realize it's not the dead animal you like. I mean, very few people just eat boiled chicken. It's the sauce that makes and the sauce is made from plants.
Yes. And nobody thinks about that until you point it out.
Yeah.
And once you point it out and they say, oh yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah. Nobody thinks about it. Yeah. That's amazing. Well, what are you going to do for Thanksgiving?
Well, actually, we're going to drive down to Santa Rosa for the first time in 3 or 4 years. Wow. And because our grandson is now is in his first year of college up here at Oregon State, which is only about an hour and 15 minutes from our place. And so he comes up here a lot. We go pick him up, and he comes up here for the weekend, and we take him back there. And so what the plan is we're going to pick him up at the end of the day when he gets out of school on Wednesday, and then drive from there to Santa Rosa. And we're going to have a family, pretty much a whole family Thanksgiving for the first time in years.
Wow. How long of a drive is it?
It's about 10, 11 hours.
Wow. So you don't want to fly because it's quicker?
No, it's just easier. We'll pick them up on the way, and John can do part of the driving, and Jason can do part of the driving, and I can even drive if I had to.
Wow. Well, you can fly a plane, so I'm guessing
I
you
can,
probably
yeah, I can manage. You're
could
right. If
probably
I can
fly
fly
a
an
car.
airplane, I can probably drive a car.
Well, that's great. I'm about 2 hours from Santa Rosa now. That's incredible. Wow. Will all your kids be there?
No, well, all of them except one. The one that lives here in Portland, Craig, and his wife Mika, and the two kids that are here. They actually, both of them are doctors, and both of them have patients scheduled for like the day before and the day after Thanksgiving, and so they can't get away. So we've had Thanksgiving with them the whole every year, I think, since we moved to Portland. So this will be the first year that we've been without them, but it'll be all the rest of the kids. And
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, it'll be your first time back in Santa Rosa.
no, we went there a few times after, but we flew. No, I think we drove maybe one or two times. But it'll be the first time in probably 2.5 years.
Too bad there's not a train. A train would be a nice way.
A train would be nice, yeah.
That would be nice. I don't
But
think
we have a nice car to drive, so it's pretty easy.
Yeah. I don't think I could last 11 hours in the car, but I'm curious. So when you take a road trip like that, will you be packaging food for the road? Will you be stopping like at a Wendy's for a baked potato? How will you manage the trip?
I haven't even thought about that. I think the last time we drove, we took things with us and we ate, like potatoes, or I made some banana bread. I made some other bars that we took along. I think, let's see, where else did we stop? We stopped on the way a few times, but no, we just kind of just go. And we figured, we'll just eat when we get there or something. We don't really spend a lot of time thinking about food. We just think about getting there.
How about Woodburn?
And well, Woodburn is close. There's a great place. See, we have a Tesla, so we don't have to look for gas stations. We have to look for chargers. And so we find places that have good places to eat. And there's a great place in Woodburn that's really close to where we live. And it's right on the way to Corvallis, where we have to pick up our grandson. And they have a great sushi restaurant there. And so we can get a ramen-based, a miso-based ramen bowl there, or we can get, they make us a great big roll, a veggie big roll that's perfect. Just got seaweed wrapped around rice with sweet potatoes and what else? Soup. I think just sweet potatoes inside. It's really good. So we stopped there. And then on the way home, the rest of the trip, we usually find a place that has some place where we find a lot of sushi places because we find that they're the easiest to get healthy food, because sushi is made fresh. And it's just made with white rice and fresh vegetables and no oils.
Yep. You ever stop at Wendy's? That's my go-to when I
travel. I haven't been there in a long time, but I'm glad you pointed that out, because there probably are some Wendy's at some of the supercharger places that we stop that we can go in and get a baked potato, and they still serve broccoli there, right?
Some of them do. I find that some of them don't, but they do that. I wish I knew how they made their baked potatoes so fluffy. They're just delicious.
Well, one thing I learned about baked potatoes is I read somewhere sometime that you take a big russet potato and you bake it in a 425-degree oven, and in an hour it gets really fluffy. If you cook it on a lower temperature, it's much more solid inside, and then you just kind of pinch the ends together like this with your hands, and the inside sort of just fluffs up. And so I like that, except for lately I've been wrapping my russet potatoes, because we like to eat the skin too. And when I bake them in the oven, and look for the fluffy inside, the outsides are so crispy that we don't like them as well as the soft skins.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, I love to air fry them too. Makes them really crunchy. So Jolene says, what's the name of the sushi restaurant in Woodburn? It's just up the road from her.
Sushi Brothers.
Oh.
It's right near the Premium Outlet Mall in Woodburn, and it's look for the Tesla supercharging station. And it's right there. It's on
Wow.
Arnie Road.
Wow. Who's a better cook, you or Heather?
I don't know. I think Heather might be getting there. She has a big family to cook for, and so she has this wide variety of boys, growing teenage boys that want to eat all the time, and so I think she has to cook all the time. I don't think she does as much experimenting as I did, but that was the old days. I don't experiment too much anymore. I have favorites that I make over and over again, and I think. If you talk to Heather about it, she remembers very well all the times when my kids were the guinea pigs for all the recipes that I worked on, and I'd get positive and negative reports on all of them.
It's funny, guinea pigs are actually vegan, so they really work.
I like that.
And they're adorable. So someone's saying that on your McDougall app, there's 3 peanut sauce recipes. So which is the one that's so popular? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, but it's just made with peanut butter or PB2 mixed up with water to make a peanut butter consistency, and then more water. And the one with the chili sauce has a teaspoon of chili, I think chili seasoning, chili sauce in with it. It just gives it a little, but it's only like 3 or 4 ingredients.
Yeah, it's really good.
But I don't know which one it is. But one thing else that I have really considered doing, and I actually bought a thermos. I'll probably take it with me when we go down to Santa Rosa this time, because I was going to make my own peanut sauce or my own gravy to take with me on a trip, so I could stop and buy a potato somewhere and have my own topping to go over the top of it.
That's a great idea. Do you have a food dehydrator, Mary?
I do, yeah.
Because what you could do is you could make your gravy or your peanut sauce. You could dehydrate it, so now it's a powder, and then you can get boiling water in any place and then reconstitute it. And then you wouldn't have to worry about it being fresh.
Oh, that's true. But I don't travel that much.
Yeah.
That I can, I have this little thermos that I bought.
No, it's a great idea. But if you ever did have to travel,
yeah.
Josh says, do you miss living in Santa Rosa?
I did more at first. We've been here in Portland for 5 years now, so we're getting to know our way around. It kind of feels like home now, and we have this great view and just tons of windows, and so all day long, we look outside at the river, and there's always something going on. So the view really makes it for us. It makes it feel really, really special. So no, I don't miss it as much as I used to. And now I'm getting used to. We don't live right in the city. And we live in the city, but we live on the outskirts a little bit of the city. So it's not like it's real busy where we live.
Nice. Kathy says, when you cook your potatoes, do you poke them? Do you cut the ends off?
When I make sweet potatoes, I poke them. When I do russet potatoes, I don't poke them.
No poking. Okay.
I don't know why. Just, there's just little things that I've done over the years. And I don't even try them the other way. So I don't know. I could probably poke the white ones too, but I don't.
Yeah, I think I poke. But sweet potatoes, I just cut the tip off a little bit. I don't know.
Why. Okay. I let the tips go off, and I put them on a baking sheet that has foil and then parchment paper, because sweet potatoes, they leak all their juices.
Yes, that's why I don't poke them.
Sticks to the pan.
Yeah.
No matter what you're doing. So I always have them on parchment paper so that I can easily take them off the pan.
I should get you, next time I get you a present, I have something that's like permanent parchment paper. It's like a Silpat, but it's a tray, and it's really good. Then I don't have to keep using parchment paper. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Put that on your Christmas.
All right. I remember that.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Well, wow, it's so great talking to you guys. It's been a while. So
It has been a while. It's been too long.
I know we got your own show now. You're too busy to come on
I,
JJ Live.
I know every Sunday night we have to sort of plan that into our weekend, and we have to be around every Sunday night.
That's true. Hey, so when you're with Heather, you can broadcast from her house together.
We will, and we did that a few weeks ago when she brought, her oldest son down to college. She came and stayed here. So like 3 weekends ago, she was in one room of our condo and we were in the other room when we did the show at the same time, same place. Works.
Very cool. Very cool. Do the grandchildren ever get involved in front of the camera?
No, I mean, once in a while we'll pull them in, and make them say hi, but none of them are really the kind that this is what they want to do. Oh, can we say hi? They're all, no, Grandma.
None of them are interested, huh?
No, not yet.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. Yes, McDougall Mondays will continue. It's going to be the first Monday of the month. We just, for some reason, this just seems like it's been a really long time. I think we might have missed 1 month, but yes.
I think we did. Yeah.
So I think what happened is Dr. McDougall came on twice. I think it was in August.
I think so,
because of the rice diet thing. And then I think we missed 1 month, and that's why it seems like
so
really.
Yeah, it does seem like a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great. Well, Mary, so great catching up with you, and I can't wait
to hear
your road trip. Yeah, and
I'll be sure to let you know.
Yeah, and
I'll let you know what we took along.
No, that'll be. I think people, and I'm sure take pictures, because Heather can post them on your Instagram page. People love that kind of stuff.
I know the pictures that she just put up were things that we had done a couple of weeks ago, and we had a dinner last Sunday night where I made mashed potatoes and gravy and tofu loaf. And I took pictures of all that, and I had everybody help me, take the pictures. And so I'm getting used to taking pictures of the things that I'm making. Yeah. So they'll show up on Instagram now. It's easy to do that.
I assume you're going to travel with Dr. McDougall probably brings a laptop everywhere. I'm guessing he wouldn't go without his computer. If you're at one of those charging stations, we can do a live, like seriously.
Oh, okay.
And like we could say, hey, we're here. And this is what, seriously, I'm going to suggest it to him. It doesn't have to be like 3 hours. It could be like 10 minutes and saying, hey, this is what we're doing.
Here we are.
That could be really fun.
It probably would be fun. Yeah.
Road trip with the McDougalls. It's like being there. Yeah.
Every let's see, every 4 or 5 hours we have to stop and charge again. So
yeah, that's something. Wow, that's great. Okay, well, thanks so much, Mary. I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you,
before
AJ.
the holidays. And I can't wait that the prospect of you guys doing a cooking class together.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Together.
It should be fun. Yeah,
and I bet
because we always get questions about what we serve for holiday meals, and so I've been doing the same thing for the last 30 years. And so now this year, Heather's taking it over. And so she's going to be doing the same thing at her house this year.
You're handing her the torch.
Yeah, that's right.
You're giving her the McDougall medallion.
Yes, she can take care of it.
That would be great. Well, thanks.
Take care of it from now on.
You guys are the best. Thank you so much, Dr. McDougall and Mary.
Thanks, AJ.
My pleasure. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back at 2 p.m. when we have a bonus show today with a plant-based registered nurse, Sheila Ames, and she's going to be making cow